בחרמון נמס השלג בחצי הלילה, בחרמון זורם לו פלג בחצי הליל. אבא שם על הר השלג בחצי הלילה, שר שירים על נס בפלא עם כל ישראל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. בבקעת תמר פורח בחצי הלילה, הירח שם זורח בחצי הליל. שם אחי ודאי שומע בחצי הלילה את שירנו השמח כאן בישראל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. במדבר הולך החושך בחצי הלילה, שקט הס בארץ גושן בחצי הליל. לדודי עיני נחושת בחצי הלילה, וגם הוא חוגג כמו שכל בית ישראל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. ואני יושב בבית בחצי הלילה, עם נרות וגביע יין בחצי הליל, וכוכב מאיר עיניים בחצי הלילה, לי מוסר ברכת שמיים ולכל ישראל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. שוב צוהל.
Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Ті, хто води всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар.
Future sun.
Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks, and welcome back to day 1002 of the news. And today we have historic news that for the first time in an active conflict, Russia's fired an IRBM at Ukraine, and also Ukraine has counterattacked Russia at their nuclear test site. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine today, as we've been able to hear of major escalations happening inside of the conflict as the Russian Federation, for the first time in armed combat in history, has deployed and used an Intermediate Range Ballistic Missile, the RS-26 Rubezh, or a modified version of the Rubezh, against the Ukrainian city of Dnipro, as the fall of the multiple warheads was captured on film, and multiple governments, including the United States, Ukraine, the United Kingdom, and the Russian Federation, in some way, shape, or form, have all made comments about the specific incident that happened at Dnipro today. Right afterwards, the Ukrainian armed forces immediately conducted a drone counterattack at the launching point of the Intermediate Range Ballistic Missile at Kasputin Yar, just north of Donetsk, where a large amount of Russian stealth aircraft had been destroyed not too long ago. We were also able to hear major news today as well, as the Russian Federation apparently got on a phone call, according to statements that have been made by the British government at the moment, and largely stated that the Russian Federation and the United Kingdom are now directly at war, and that the United Kingdom can now expect to face some sort of severe retaliation within the next few days. The British government has had a general come out, I believe of the Royal Marines, and state that the United Kingdom is ready to fight in Eastern Europe if the order was given tonight. At the exact same time, we've been able to see that the Ukrainian armed forces and a large amount of the world has been absolutely shocked by the actions that occurred with the launch of the RS-26 Rubezh overnight. And we have been able to see the Ukrainian drone attacks have continued to pummel the Russian Federation in the meantime, striking targets around the city of Krasnodar, once again related to the oil industry. And not only that, we have also been able to hear some major updates from the Ukrainian Storm Shadow attack that occurred the other day at the village of Marino along the E-38 highway, and we have been able to hear that multiple Russian officers, senior officers of the Russian command inside of the Kursk region, have been wounded and killed, and there also is a report that a North Korean general was also inside the building and may have been grievously or mortally wounded and is currently fighting for their life. Meanwhile, the battle inside the Kursk Oblast has continued to roll on, I guess you could call it, as the Russian Federation has continued to try and push the Ukrainians out with absolutely no success over the past 24 hours, taking high losses as recorded on film, with Ukrainian forces largely holding their positions exactly as they were 24 hours ago, and the Russian Federation once again at a complete loss of how to push the Ukrainians out before the beginning of possible peace talks coming around at the beginning of next year. Meanwhile, across multiple other front lines, we've been able to see that Ukrainian armed forces have once been conducting limited counterattacks within the area of Vovchansk, seeking to push the Russian Federation back out of the controlled territory just north of the town, and we have also been able to see heavy Ukrainian defensive actions in the area around Kupiansk, inside of the Severonsky Forest, as well as an Su-25 close air support mission near to the area of Chasiv Yar, as well as multiple drone attacks being conducted by Ukrainian defensive forces near Pokrovsk, which appears to be a battlefield that is starting to recede in importance, at least at the moment, as it appears that the main bulk of the Russian offensive effort in this area may have possibly died off sometime in between the past week or two, and we've also been able to see that within the southern front at Urozhaine, the Ukrainians are continuing to pummel Russian forces quite heavily in this area, continuing to inflict very high losses on a largely inactive and immovable front line. We've also been able to see that the Ukrainians have conducted a major missile strike on a Russian training field just south of the active front line in Zaporizhia, and not only that, we have also been able to hear news that the North Koreans are now directly, openly threatening the United States with a nuclear war over the actions that have been taken inside of Ukraine so far. Once again, putting their hat in the game they really can't, because their hat's made of dog, and it's not really that good of a hat. It's one of the worst hats.
Yellow spits, specifically. It's made of yellow spits.
It's a pretty horrendous looking hat. And we were also able to hear from the United States government, as we did get an official statement today, that the United States government was informed just a short while before the firing of the Russian Intermediate Range Ballistic Missile, and they did know that the attack was going to be happening. But the notice was incredibly short and made over a phone line that is meant specifically to notify the U.S. government of any possible nuclear-looking actions to once again de-escalate the situation. But we have loads of news to cover today. I cannot say it enough, and I quite literally feel like we're saying this day after day, month after month at this point, but today is probably the craziest day of news. Oh my God! Michael Thomas just threw in a 500! Holy
That's
moly.
wild. Thank you. Very generous.
That is crazy right there. A huge thank you for the support. And we'll be getting to that here in just a little bit. But in honor of that massive support, we are going to make sure to start knocking out the news immediately. And it is time for us to now talk about what specifically happened overnight. And what actually happened it was about 2 hours after we cut off our stream that this IRBM launch happened. Now, I do have to clear up a couple of things really quickly about the specific weapon that was used from what we understand. A lot of people out there, and some people that we generally are not really a big fan of, have tried to claim that the missile that was used was that of an intercontinental ballistic missile of the Rubezh variant. From what we understand, that is simply not true. The missile that was actually used is an intermediate range ballistic missile that is very similar to the RS-26, but is not an intercontinental ballistic missile. Its range is just a little short of the threshold that would require it to be an intercontinental ballistic missile, and not only that, it also is only capable of reaching about 3,600 miles in range. If we were to measure, and I want to make sure to show you all this just to make this very clear, if we were to measure from a launch point inside of the far west of Russia, 3,600 miles does not actually get you even close to the United States. You might be able to splash it down around Newfoundland, but it would not make it into the United States or continental North America for that matter. It would actually splash down in the Atlantic, and therefore, for this reason, it is not an intercontinental ballistic missile. It is an intermediate range ballistic missile, but it's one of the longest range versions.
Also, Enforcer, And also, just from a like common sense perspective, intercontinental ballistic missile, meaning it can cross continents, and obviously that intermediate one that we're looking at right here, it cannot cross continents, so it would not qualify. But I will say this though, Ukraine has been saying pretty much all day long that it was an ICBM, and even their own Stratcom made that claim that it was an ICBM. But at this point, it looks like the American analysts in the American government, and also the Russians, for whatever that's worth, is saying that it was an intermediate range ballistic missile. So that apparently is it, but it's literally right on the cusp of being at the same range of an ICBM.
And from what we understand, this missile isn't exactly a normal kind of, well, what you would call a normal kind of an intercontinental ballistic missile. And Matthew, if I'm remembering correctly, the exact variant is a form of the RS-26 Rubezh, but I don't have that over here on the side screen really quickly to pull up the exact missile. So could you give me the name really quickly of the missile, considering that you covered it in a little bit more detail before the stream?
So to my knowledge, it actually is the RS-26 Rubezh. That is the missile that was fired according to Ukraine.
And so really quickly, I want to make sure to try and get over here and show you all this. And so this is right here the little bit of information that we have at the moment. Of course, we have seen that the rumored use is already here, and I had to make sure, Matthew, because I actually had this up on screen, but for some reason it showed ICBM, and I was like, nah, that's not it, because it kind of sort of almost qualifies, because it's such a long range intermediate range ballistic missile. Some people argue that it is an intercontinental ballistic missile, but that simply is not the case. It is still described by everyone as an intermediate range ballistic missile, meaning that anyone who stated that this thing was an ICBM today was just simply uninformed. This thing is an IRBM. That does not mean, though, and I want to make this very clear, that it is not a dangerous weapon. An intermediate range ballistic missile is literally the last step up to the intercontinental ballistic missile, which is the only kind of missile that is larger in range and capability than that of an IRBM. An intermediate range ballistic missile is able to threaten pretty much every single nation inside of Europe, but it is not able to directly threaten the continental United States. It may be able to threaten Alaska in some instances, and it is also able to threaten, in some areas, our overseas territories, such as Guam, and also overseas U.S. military bases that are also within the area of East Asia. Although I do not believe that Hawaii is in range. I believe Hawaii is actually out of range of an IRBM. Nevertheless, these weapons are fairly dangerous and quite concerning, as we were able to see that they were, well, at least the one that we were able to hear of, and we believe there may have actually been a second one, but we do know of one that was fired from the Kasputin, I'm trying to make sure to get that correct, but I always call it Kasputin, which is wrong. It's actually Kasputin Yar Launch facility just outside of Otominsk, which is near the Volga River. The missile was fired from this location, traveled across the southern Russian Don area, and into the city of Dnipro, where we were able to finally see the video evidence of the MIRV re-entering and then slamming down into the actual city of Dnipro. And we were able to see this clip right here. There are multiple different clips that we were able to find online, but for brevity's sake, we've decided only to just show this one because it still largely shows the actual MIRV re-entering and then slamming down into the city of Dnipro. I want to make this very clear, however, that while it was an intermediate range ballistic missile, and this is the first time that a largely nuclear-only weapon like this has been used in combat, it was not armed with nuclear warheads. From what we saw and what we know, all of the warheads were actually inert and were pretty much being used in a kinetic form, meaning that the only damage that was really caused was by them hitting their target directly through their kinetic energy. There was no explosives involved, there was no nuclear warhead on board, all of them were kinetic alone. And so here is the re-entry of the MIRV warheads right here.
You know, that's just like, honestly, like when I saw this earlier, I was in disbelief when I woke up and saw this footage coming out. To see a MIRV being used in an active conflict like this is like horror fuel, like to say the least, at least to me. When I saw it, I was like, surely Ukraine had to be very scared because they did not know what type of warhead was on that missile. But later we found out that the U.S. was informed ahead of time of the launch, and they were actually informed of what type of warhead it would be carrying, and that message was then passed on to Kyiv. So that explains why Ukraine was not as scared as they, probably should have been with an IRBM flying toward their territory, because they knew that the warhead on board was simply inert and the impacts were kinetic. So any damage caused on the ground was simply from the impact of the weight of that 200 kilogram like MIRV system that hit the ground. So very interesting, but also very scary to see the footage.
It is very scary to see the footage. It's something that's very concerning because quite literally everyone in the world has talked about this today. And I also have to address this really quickly because I'm seeing a old guard of the channel saying that this is fake footage. The United States government has confirmed that this happened. The Ukrainian government confirmed it happened. The Russian government, in a very stupid way, confirmed that it happened. Putin confirmed that it happened. The North Koreans confirmed that it happened. The United Kingdom confirmed that it happened. I think almost everyone and anyone that we could list in the world that would matter confirmed that it actually happened. So this is not fake by any means. This actually happened. So putting that out there, just in case if for some reason someone's going to start trying to push that this is all fake, you don't have world governments going crazy over something that is fake. This quite obviously happened. But nevertheless, we were able to hear that while the IRBM's MIRV warheads all did make it to their targets, none of them were intercepted at all. All of them didn't really cause a lot of damage. Once again, these are only being used in their kinetic form, and we're slamming pretty much down to the ground with the force and weight of the projectile alone, and then that's really the only damage that they caused. But the use of this weapon is sending a message, and it is one that is incredibly concerning, and one that the Russian Federation is wanting to lean into heavily. The Russian Federation is wanting to show that they are nuclear armed, and of course, obviously not only nuclear armed, but they are getting very close to actually using a nuclear weapon against the state of Ukraine, and possibly against Western nations as well. This was supposed to be the direct threat that was implied not only to Ukraine, but the rest of the West, and specifically towards the United States, the United Kingdom, and France, for providing permission for Ukraine to use ATACMS and Storm Shadows inside of the Russian Federation's territory. This is something that we cannot state enough is a bit of a serious ordeal. We have seen that the Ukrainian government made an official statement about the incident that happened. We were able to see that this was talked about by the Ukrainian Air Force on Telegram, which also published their air defense report from that night, reporting that they shot down 6 KH-101 cruise missiles, but they also added in, and I'll be reading the entire publication here by the Ukrainian Air Force on Telegram, that 6 cruise missiles were shot down, but on the morning of the 21st of November, in between 5 and 7 in the morning, Russian troops attacked the city of Dnipro with missiles of various types. In particular, they claimed it was an intercontinental ballistic missile that was launched from the Astrakhan region of the Russian Federation, but now knowing the information that it was exactly an RS-26 Rubezh, it was an intermediate range ballistic missile and not an intercontinental ballistic missile. It was fired from the Astrakhan area from the Kasputin Yar training facility, or actually the missile facility. That's not used for training, it's actually used for firing missiles, but also in a limited purpose used for training some pilots of the Russian Federation, and also a KH-47M2 Kinzhal aeroballistic missile from a MiG-31K was launched from the Tambov region with 7 KH-101 cruise missiles from Tu-95 MS strategic bombers launched from the Volgograd region. As a result of anti-aircraft combat action, units of the anti-aircraft missile forces of the Air Force destroyed 6 out of the 7 KH-101 missiles on other missiles without significant consequences. Information about victims and victims has not yet been received. Once again, we ask citizens not to delay with air warning signals, and we call on all media, people, and bloggers to responsibly spread this or that information about the combat work of the armed forces of Ukraine and any threats to the Ukrainian state, and then they said together for victory. But nevertheless, we can see that by the Ukrainian report, the RS-26 Rubezh was used. They claimed it was an intercontinental ballistic missile. It is an IRBM, not an ICBM. But beyond the semantics here, one was used, and it did use a MIRV re-entry vehicle, which was able to carry multiple warheads, which we saw re-entering and then slamming down into Dnipro. And this is, once again, I've got to say, a very concerning thing. We do understand that the Ukrainians were not able to intercept the multiple re-entering warheads over Dnipro overnight, but we do have a general understanding that they probably could if they had the proper amount of air defenses and if an air defense system was properly properly located into the area. And I'll be quickly trying to explain a little bit about this. The RS-26 Rubezh, at its at its peak velocity, gets up to a speed of around a little over Mach 10, which is around 7,610 miles per hour, or around 12,300 kilometers per hour. These missiles do fly incredibly fast, at least at their top speed. But these kinds of missiles, and really every missile, does not travel at their top speed along the entire length of their flight. It is only for a limited time during the boost and pre-boost phase that these missiles are able to reach these speeds. Beyond that, they enter the glide phase, or the mid-course phase as it's technically called, which is where the missile is quite literally gliding using its kinetic energy, but over that period of time, it is going to be gradually losing speed. Finally, the last phase, right before it hits its target, which would have been the part that we just saw over Dnipro on film, is the re-entry phase, or the terminal phase, where the warheads start to slow down considerably in speed as they're having to battle through the atmosphere to make it back down towards their target, and then they slam into the area wherever their target was. If the Ukrainians had a Patriot missile defense system in the area, it actually is possible, considering that a Patriot has shot down a Zircon and a Kinzhal, which were around Mach 4.7 and Mach 5 when they were shot down by the Patriots, would have actually been able to shoot down a decent amount of the incoming MIRVs and stop them from detonating directly onto their targets if they had actually been live and not in inert kinetic ground. This does let us know that, at least in the terms of an intermediate range ballistic missile and its interception, it is highly possible that air defense systems such as the Aegis Ashore, THAAD systems, and Patriot battery air defense systems that are currently inside of Eastern Europe at the moment could actually shoot down a decent amount of incoming intermediate range ballistic missiles and their warheads if we were to ever get into any kind of a situation like that. Not exactly a situation that you would want to be in, but still, hypothetically, based off the examples laid out by the Kinzhal and the Zircon, which would have similar speeds in their terminal phase, it is entirely hypothetically possible that a air defense system in the right place at the right time can shoot down these IRBMs and their warheads before they actually cause any major damage to a major city inside of Europe. However,
also, Enforcer, it seems like this might be the time for Ukraine to actually go ahead and request maybe perhaps the THAAD system, which would be capable of shooting down those incoming IRBMs. It might be about time to actually give one of those systems to Ukraine. And I'm sure that will be the next thing they're going to ask for. It's probably going to be the THAAD. And considering the fact that I think we just gave Israel a THAAD system, or maybe two, it would probably be wise to go ahead and send that over to Ukraine, considering Russia has shown a willingness to use that type of missile at this point. It might not be the last time they use it.
That is an interesting point. It may not be the last time to use it, but one thing I do have to say, though, is that we have never actually given anyone a THAAD at this point. And I see a lot of people are misunderstanding some information because there's been some misinformation about this out there, but Israel has not been given a THAAD. The United States Army has deployed 2 THAAD batteries inside of Israel, but those are still under the control and ownership of the Department of Defense and in extension, the United States Army. They are not at all controlled by the state of Israel, or owned by the state of Israel for that matter, and so the only way that Ukraine would be able to get a THAAD, an operational one, onto their territory would be by the United States Army with the permission of the office of the president to be able to move into Ukraine and then set up a THAAD launcher inside of Ukraine itself. And that's really the only way at the moment that we probably would see a THAAD delivered. And not only that, THAAD batteries are very limited in number at this point. While there are, I believe, dozens if not hundreds of Patriot batteries out there in the world right now, there are only 7 THAAD batteries in the entire world at the moment, and 4 of them are currently still inside of Texas, with the other 3 being elsewhere in the world, one of them being inside of South Korea, and the other 2 being inside of Israel at the moment. So largely from what we know, it would be very hard to transport a THAAD into the area and get it into Ukraine without U.S. military involvement being direct and quite obvious at that point, because the U.S. Army would not be able to train and field Ukrainian air defense in a short enough amount of time for the system to be usable, meaning that for a THAAD to be moved into the area, it would have to be done directly by the U.S. Army, and they would have to be inside of Ukraine, which would be direct intervention, at least on an armed level, and that would possibly even kick this over the next step, and then move this conflict on into the next phase. Although it is a little questionable, to be entirely honest, whether the Russians are already trying to move it into the next phase or not. But before we move into that, though, I do want to get you all our additional bits of information that we do have on the attack on Dnipro overnight with the intermediate range ballistic missile, at least at the moment, because we were able to hear that it was an RS-26 Rubezh, which is an intermediate range ballistic missile. Once again, making it very clear, it is not an ICBM, and we also had a lot of people misunderstand that today when we put out our title for our video earlier in the day and also tonight. A lot of people do not know that an IRBM is a thing. A lot of people believe that the only thing that has I and BM in its name is the IBM Computer Company and the Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, also called the ICBM. There is an intermediate range ballistic missile because there are generally different categories of different missiles depending on their range. There are cruise missiles, which are shorter range ballistic missiles or shorter range cruise missiles. Then there are intermediate range ballistic missiles. And then finally, last but not least, there are the intercontinental ballistic missiles. There is generally technically 4 categories of missiles, but for our purposes, cutting the shorter categories down into just 1 instead of 2, there are really 3 categories of missiles out there in the world. And the IRBM is literally the middle phase in between a shorter range missile and that of a longer range missile. The Zircon and the Kinzhal technically are both shorter range ballistic missiles, or SRBMs for short, and only have a range of about 560 to 600 miles, meaning that they could threaten areas right outside of Russia's borders, but it wouldn't really go that much farther. Intermediate range ballistic missiles are meant to protect the Russian Federation and any country that possesses them from threats that are not exactly right outside of their country's borders, but a little bit farther beyond, sort of in what would be called the periphery, at least in that area. And that's the kind of role that the IRBM feels. An ICBM is really only used by the major nuclear powers in the world, which would be the United States, the Russian Federation, the People's Republic of China, North Korea, and the United Kingdom and France. And I believe, if I'm correct, India and Pakistan, if I remember correctly, do not have any ICBMs because their nuclear doctrines directly are revolved around nuking each other, which is an incredibly short-range target. And so for that reason, I believe that all of their nuclear weapons are short-range ballistic missiles or intermediate-range ballistic missiles. But nevertheless, all of the more major strategic powers in the world, North Korea not included, and Russia hardly included at all have intermediate range ballistic missiles. And that is an actual category of missile that is used, and that was the one that was used today. We want to make that very clear. And I cannot say that enough times. I think I've said that about 3 times now, because there has been a load of misinformation today about what this weapon is and what it is capable of. Stating that as an ICBM gives people the idea that this missile that was used today in particular is capable of striking the mainland United States, which is simply not the case and never will be. That missile does not have the range to directly threaten the continental United States, and for this reason, it is not an intermediate range ballistic missile. It is an ICBM. We greatly derided that in the statements that were made today by some other people in the category who specifically put ICBM in their title for the algorithm and not to make sure that they're accurately covering it and putting IRBM in the title. Because when speaking of nuclear weapons, or well, not nuclear weapons, but something that could carry a nuclear weapon, it's a little bit important to try and get the semantics down correctly, considering that we're dealing with something this serious, instead of blowing it out of proportion and calling it an ICBM. But moving on from that quick side note, and moving on into something else that we heard, we did hear that it doesn't seem like the Russian Federation is exactly keeping this thing calm and collected. It looks like the Russian government may be spiraling out of control at the moment, and a lot of people are wondering, what does this mean for the world, especially considering that Putin just launched the first intermediate range ballistic missile for the first time in history in an active combat situation, and a lot of people seem to be believing that the Russians are still only scaremongering and that there's no real threat behind this usage of the Rubezh overnight. And so, Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so it looks like 44% of the audience, the most popular option here, said Russia is simply scaremongering, while 28% said Russia is ready to use nukes now that they've launched the IRBM, and 20% said Russia is simply in the death throes of a dying nation. And on this one, I would say this. I think what Russia is trying to portray here is that they are ready to use nukes. That is the image that Putin is trying to put forward. And I think ultimately, though, it is probably scaremongering, because like we've been saying, the only real situation where Putin would actually actually probably end up using a nuke is if NATO went in on the ground inside of Ukraine. And outside of that, the nukes probably will not be used, at least according to our own analysis. Because once again, launching a nuke is a whole different animal from launching an inert warhead on an ICBM or an IRBM, a completely different animal. And even though they launched something that was nuclear capable today, that once again was not a nuclear weapon. So a whole different thing. So me personally, I would say it's scaremongering. I'm with the 43%. And me personally, I think that's the objective. They're trying to scare the West into compliance, and we should not fall victim to that. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would generally have to say I believe that the Russian Federation is scaremongering, and I'm also going to explain really quickly why by also touching on a couple of other news topics. One, the RS-26 Rubezh that was launched had its warheads removed and was only using the actual re-entry vehicles in a kinetic form, meaning that there was really no damage that was done at all by the strike, rather than the direct area where the warheads hit the ground. There is a little bit of damage that is out there. We decided not to show it on stream tonight because it was a bit of a side point, and also the damage was quite honestly negligible by the warheads that re-entered, but nevertheless, it does seem to me that from that action alone, it doesn't really look like they're wanting to use a nuclear weapon yet. Because if they wanted to, they could have easily done it right then and there. But there is something far more important and something that seems a lot smaller in detail, to be entirely honest with y'all, that is being overlooked by a lot of people in showing that the Russians truly are not ready to use a nuclear weapon, or truly ready to get people actually scared on a nuclear weapon being used. And it's this statement that came out today from the United States Department of Defense during a press briefing. And I want to make sure to get to this really quickly because this was probably the most important one that we can get. So here is the clip. I want you all to listen to it as it came out, and I'm going to explain why this is one of the most important details that we can hear right now to let us know that this is scaremongering. So here it is.
Thanks, Lita. So trying to remember some of the order of your questions. So I can confirm that Russia did launch an experimental intermediate range ballistic missile. This IRBM was based on Russia's RS-26 Rubezh intercontinental ballistic missile model. In terms of notifications to the United States was pre-notified briefly before the launch through nuclear risk reduction channels. For more, I'd refer you to state on that. And I think your third question was on our reaction to Putin's comments.
Now, the whole thing, beyond them getting the technical points out, this is the most important part right here.
The United States was pre-notified briefly before the launch.
That is the most important part of what we could get today from the Pentagon, is that the United States was pre-informed before the launch. It was very brief, however. We believe it was only about a 5 to 10 minute window, but they were pre-informed about the launch. That is one of the most important things right now that is showing us that the Russians are truly not ready to fire off a nuclear weapon. If they wanted to really give the U.S. government on a diplomatic level the understanding that a nuclear weapon was just a short while away from being used, then they would have not notified the U.S. government and they would have fired the intermediate range ballistic missile into Ukraine, allowing it to slam down into its target, which, considering that there would have been no pre-notification by the Russian Federation to the U.S. government about this action, this would have caused a massive panic within the U.S. government, and one that probably would have made diplomats believe that the Russians seriously were about to use an actual armed nuclear weapon within the very short time moving forward. So with that in mind, we do know that the Russians are largely scaremongering, and once again, I want to put this out there. They're scaremongering the public, but on a diplomatic level, in the actual government circles that would matter in terms of how the United States would react, they're making sure to at least do their due diligence to keep them informed, so that way this doesn't actually escalate out of hand and start to make it appear that the Russians truly are about to use a nuke any minute now. This is letting us know, once again, once and for all, that the Russians are scaremongering on this thing. The next time that they did this, and they did not call the United States government, and then they just launched it anyways in Ukraine with inert warheads, we would know at that point that they are getting fairly close to using a nuclear weapon. That's what I would say, in my opinion. But at the moment, with them calling up the U.S. government, it is showing that they are truly scared of this going overboard, and so this is more so of a symbolic gesture of fear-mongering as usual, instead of actually trying to make the fear quite legitimate and serious, at least within the U.S. government. So
And also, they really have to call the U.S. because I'm sure they probably did not want to, because that's something obviously the enemy, Russia, does not want to call up their other enemy, the United States, and start telling them they're about to launch something. They don't want to do that. But at the same time, there's a possibility they could launch that IRBM or that ICBM, and then the United States detects that launch and thinks, oh crap, there's a nuke heading for maybe our country or maybe a NATO ally, and we really don't know where it's going. And that could trigger a very unfortunate series of events, with shooting the thing down and then maybe retaliating, not knowing where it's going. So they really have to call, or it could mean an accidental nuclear war popping off.
but the thing about it, though, like here's my thing about that, is that the missile, from what I'm understanding, correct, was fired from Kapustin Yar, because that's what I heard today.
Yes, it was.
So it was fired from Kapustin Yar to Dnipro, which is a range of about 500 miles. And from what we know on the information side of things, for at least a good part of that flight, the RS-26's warhead would have been flying at a speed of around 7,610 miles per hour. Meaning, and let me do the math here, so that way I can try and figure this out exactly. So we have a range of about 560 miles, which is literally the range of a short-range ballistic missile, divided by 7,600 miles per hour, meaning that from the launch point to impact, it was probably around 6 minutes or less from the missile being fired at Kapustin Yar to its actual impact at Dnipro. Meaning, also another thing that's important here to remember, is that I do not believe that the United States has any nuclear detection radar systems that are able to look into this direction specifically. I believe ours are facing more towards the North Pole than anything, and while we may have some detection systems, they're not incredibly numerous or incredibly strong detection systems within this area. The Russians could have just left us completely in the dark, and the entire flight path of this missile was so short and so fast, considering it happens in less than 5 minutes, there would have been no way for us to actually get the information that it was in the air before it had actually impacted, because it takes a minute for that kind of information to get around, even if it was detected. To give you all a bit of an idea here on how long it would take, in an intercontinental ballistic missile attack scenario where the Russian Federation was to fire strategic nuclear weapons at the United States, it is understood that NORAD would be able to pick up the missiles and give the President of the United States, from the time that they pick up the missiles to the time that the President's informed, about 7 minutes of decision-making time. It takes 15 minutes for an ICBM to be able to fly from its launch point to its actual target inside the United States. And for that reason, we know that the average detection time for NORAD, and also the amount of time that it would take for the President to be informed, is 7 minutes. And considering that this missile would have been fired and then impacted its target in less than 5 minutes, we know that that actually is so fast of an action that there would be no way for the United States to be informed quick enough and then freak out badly enough to then fire off nuclear weapons, because by the time the news had reached the President, it would also be reaching him with the additional stipulation that the missile and its warheads have actually already impacted their targets and they were non-nuclear in form. And so for
Now,
that,
on the detection, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know this for a certainty, but I'm pretty sure that we would know within about 60 seconds or so. For example, if Russia launched an ICBM or an IRBM or any ballistic missile of that sort of that magnitude, we would know within about 60 seconds, because we have an array of satellites that is constantly hovering above Russia, and they make their rotations around the orbit, and they are studying Russia specifically. And also, I think we have them going around China as well in an orbit. So I think we would know pretty quick. And also, I think we have some other means as well that might be able to detect that, maybe even quicker than the satellites.
maybe so, but nevertheless, from what we do know, even still, we hear that at least in a strategic nuclear scenario, the president will only have about 7 minutes of reaction time before the nukes actually impacted the United States, which is letting us know, considering that that's going off of an ICBM, it takes about 7 minutes from the point of launch to the time the president's informed for that entire process to happen. Even if the launch is detected within 60 seconds, it apparently takes an additional 6 or 5 minutes or so for them to be able to get to the president. And that's the fastest time that we have been able to crunch out, is about 7 minutes. So that means, even still, that if that missile was launched from Kapustin Yar and then hit Dnipro, it was launched and then impacted so quickly in 5 minutes that it would be 2 minutes short of the news actually making it to the president. Meaning that by the time that thing impacted inside of Ukraine with its non-nuclear warheads, the president would be told, the Russians launched an IRBM and it was not nuclear armed, but this is a major panic because they did not tell us about this, and they're truly actually trying to escalate to a nuclear conflict at that point. Because the Russians also called the United States and informed them of this over a nuclear de-escalation line. which is, as you know, Matthew, is specifically made to make sure that the Russians can say, hey, look, we're conducting some action with something that would be a nuclear weapon, but it's not anything that you need to worry about, which is letting us know.
Don't you think when that red line like rang today, like with all the tensions running rampant right now, whoever was answering the red line was probably crapping their pants, thinking, oh crap, I wonder what they're calling about. And then they heard, they got notification that they were going to launch an ICBM or an IRBM of some sort. And obviously this was connected to the embassy closures that we saw the other day. They didn't tell them where they were going to launch it to. They simply told the U.S. that they were going to launch an IRBM sometime in the coming days, but they didn't tell them where it was going to go. So I think the embassies were closed for that single day in preparation and precaution for that, and that was part of it. And also all the other countries that have an embassy in Kyiv closed theirs as well. So everyone took that very serious, and it actually ended up not going for Kyiv. It went for Dnipro instead, but nonetheless, it caused some alarm bells to be set off in Kyiv.
And it's a very interesting target as well, because they could have easily slammed down this IRBM's warheads, the kinetic ones, in Kyiv. Like, quite literally, that would have been a very easy thing to do instead of slamming them down in Dnipro. And even them hitting Dnipro is, once again, not as strong as an action as we were originally anticipating and the United States was originally anticipating, because according to our actions with the closure of the embassy and everyone else closing their embassy, everyone believed that it was actually going to be launched at Kyiv. And they didn't know what was going to be happening with that, but they still wanted their embassy staff out of there in the meantime, and the embassy shut down. So that's also letting us know, once again, the Russians downplayed the thing, and more so into a scaremongering role that on a diplomatic level, and at least on a governmental level, is not going to be taken as they are quite literally going to fire the nuke the next day. But it still is something that is escalatory. I want to make that very clear, is that it's not as escalatory as it could have been, and it shows that the Russians are not just one step away from launching the nuke. It shows that they're getting towards that point, though I'll be entirely honest, at this point it would look like they are, but at this moment they're still scaremongering, and we truly haven't reached the apex of getting towards where the Russians truly would fire a nuke in their next action. That's what I'm understanding it to be at the moment, and that's all the information that we have from the ground. And we also got some pictures of the fragments of the intermediate range ballistic missile right here, which is... we don't really know the internal plumbing, to be entirely honest with y'all, of an RS-26, but these do look like foreign objects that would be involved in rocketry, so we are largely understanding that these would be the parts of an RS-26.
I guess that's maybe part of the one of the MIRV units, maybe. Like, it looks like maybe a part of that. I really can't tell, like you're saying. I don't know the internals of the system. Like, it's a brand new experimental weapon that Russia created, but it looks like this could be part of one of those MIRV detachment units.
It kind of does, but still, I don't know exactly anything about, to be entirely honest with y'all, the internals of an RS-26 Rubezh. So this could quite literally be anything inside of it. I have no clue. I mean, hell, it could have been a part of the base plate that was holding the warheads together, and then it just ended up falling over Dnipro and landing somewhere. We don't really know. But still, it is showing fragments that quite visibly did land. And we were also able to see in this little snippet right here, another picture of a fragment. We don't know what this thing was. It appears to have been heavily warped and damaged on impact with the ground, but it still appears to be a part of the RS-26 Rubezh. And we can also see the other fragment that we just saw in the video, pictured with everything else in the picture being removed, giving us a little bit more of a clearer view of what this fragment looked like. But nevertheless, it clearly is an intermediate range ballistic missile, and we are going to be considering that this is quite a serious ordeal. And it also appears that the Ukrainians are considering this a very serious ordeal as well, as just a few hours after the missile landed inside of Dnipro, we then saw that Ukrainian drones had flown all the way across Russia into Kasputin Yar and were attacking the launch facility, which we can see right here. And we see the drone flying right towards Kasputin Yar.
Very calm for the thing to be flying toward a nuclear test site. This woman's like, oh, it's just another day, another drum.
She's like, wow, look at that. That's kind of cool.
Oh. They were able to get that one.
And we can now see another clip of another drone coming in. We see it's the same one, just from a different angle being shot down. I thought that was a drone, that bird right there. That was just a bird. But that's the end of that clip, but still showing us a little bit of some of the Ukrainian attack that happened on Kasputin Yar. We were not able to confirm in video or picture evidence any hits on the facility, but we were able to hear from the Ukrainian armed forces that they were able to land some hits on the facility, but we were not able to actually visually confirm that. So we're taking their word at face value at the moment, but we still do not have any video and picture evidence to 100% confirm that story. Nevertheless, we are going to be moving on out of the area of the Kasputin Yar test range, as it now sounds like the Russian Federation has moved on to trying to directly pick a fight with a nuclear armed power here in the Western world, and that, interestingly enough, is actually the United Kingdom. But before we get to that, though, I do want to show you all this because we found this to be something of note and interest to show all of y'all before we move on over into the United Kingdom, is that the Russian press secretary, Maria Zakharova, was conducting a press conference today after the missile had been fired, and this stupid staged thing happened, and we just got to show it to y'all. Like, we can't even make this up. She got a phone call, and of course press secretaries pick up their phone really easy, like during a press conference, which is their job, and she answered it, and someone on the other end, sounding like a absolutely cool dude wearing sunglasses, like a real alpha chat, said, "Make sure not to tell them about the missile. That's classified. Don't tell them about the missile." And so she said, "Oh, okay, I won't tell them about the missile, I promise. Super classified, super secret." And then she went back to the press conference. So here's the clip, but it is hilarious.
Так, с нами ли
Спасибо большое.
портал
Моя замечательная.
News.ru? Да,
Yo, is this Pizza Hut?
да, у меня брифинг.
Let's get the speaker as close to the microphone as possible, Blitz.
Yeah.
Yes, so that way they can hear it and think it's super cool, super secret, super badass, Blitz.
Just interrupt the whole press conference to take a phone call, man. That is ridiculous. Like, and who the hell, like, you know, obviously whoever's calling her knows she's out here doing a press conference. They know she's out there doing that. It's like she gets briefed before she goes out there, and they didn't tell her during the briefing before she went out to speak that you're not supposed to mention the missile. They said, no, I'll just update you later by cell phone. It's like, what the hell? This has never happened before, and it's just theatrics. It's hilarious and also cringy at the same time.
You know what the Russians were doing before she went out there, Matthew? They said, okay, so when you go out there, make sure to put your phone up there on the podium so that way it can be ready to pick up a call. We're going to call you at some point in the press conference. You're going to pick up the phone, and we want you to put it really close to the microphone so that way everyone can hear us tell you not to talk about the missile. So that way they don't hear about the missile, but they know about the missile, and they know that we did it. It's going to be really badass and cool. And then next we're going to have Hulk Hogan come out on stage and challenge you to a fight. Brother, a real fight, brother, or something like that. It's like, all right, but I want y'all to watch this again because they made her put this thing right up to the microphone right here.
Да, у меня брифинг.
Yeah, look at that, man. Right up to the microphone.
Yeah, right
and
up
also,
to the
by the
mic.
way, is that an iPhone she's holding in her hand? It looks like an iPhone. A
Yes, it
Western-made
is.
phone.
Oh, yes, it is.
And that's pathetic, man. I thought they hated the West. They wear all the clothes from the West, like, for example, Adidas from Germany. They got the iPhone designed in California. They hate the West, but they love us too. It's a sick relationship.
Also, another thing I have to say to people, because some people are like, oh, this is real, like they're just that disorganized. They're not that disorganized. They would, if they really wanted to tell her something that they forgot to tell her for some weird reason, which this is probably the top priority of the Russian Federation, considering that Putin also made a statement on this today as well, on national TV. You would think that they would, if they for some reason didn't tell her, which would be a little weird, they would call up one of her aides, and then one of her aides would come and grab her off the stage and then tell her on the side, and then she would go back up there, and then she would continue to brief them. That's what normally would happen in any kind of a normal briefing anywhere in the world. This was entirely for show, and if you believe this is real, you believe the WWE is real. This is staged as hell, no joke. But moving on from that, and out of Moscow, we are now going to be moving on over into the United Kingdom, as we were able to hear that apparently the United Kingdom is going to be getting all of the smoke here soon. But before we move on to that, considering that we're still talking about the attack that happened on Ukraine last night, how should NATO respond to Russia's launch of an IRBM on Ukrainian territory? And it seems as though a lot of people are actually a big fan of lending Ukraine a THAAD. And so, Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so on this one right here of how should NATO respond to Russia's launch of an IRBM on Ukrainian territory, about 44% of the audience said NATO should lend Ukraine a THAAD system, while 23% said NATO should do nothing, and another 23% said NATO should test fire some IRBMs. And on this one, I would honestly say I'm actually with the 23% that said NATO should do nothing. And that sounds like the cowardly option to take, but actually it's the smart option to take because currently Putin did this to scaremonger. He did it to freak the West out and also make us scared to support Ukraine any more into the future. And also, this was designed to rattle us. And if we start acting erratic because we saw an IRBM being fired, that would indicate that he was successful in rattling the West and got us all shaken up. So I would say treat this for exactly what it is. It was a scaremongering tactic. Do not respond to it. Do not test fire IRBMs and start escalating it even more. Leave it alone and let it sit because I think this will pretty much go pretty much unanswered, or it's just going to sort of go by the wayside as more time passes. So it would be nice to send Ukraine a THAAD, by the way, for the 45% that said that. But like the enforcer said, there are some complications with sending the THAAD. The best we could do is lend them one, and even at that, that would be complicated. So I think the best thing to do is to simply sit back and do nothing. But enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say we preemptively nuke the Russians. I'm just kidding, by the way, everyone.
Whoa,
That would be
whoa,
ridiculous.
Jack.
Whoa, Jack, whoa. So, in all seriousness, I would say that I would agree with Matthew. I don't think we should be doing anything at this point because, one, if they fire a nuclear weapon at Ukraine, I think we're really far beyond the point of just trying to give Ukraine weaponry. I'm pretty sure that's going to devolve into a world war pretty quickly, and then probably something else beyond that. So I think that would be the least of the concern at the moment. Also, another thing is that we are also wanting the Russians to see that they are still not being taken seriously, and by not sending a THAAD, we are showing that they're not being taken seriously. Another thing is that we cannot send the Ukrainians a THAAD because none of their people are trained on a THAAD at the moment. So we would have to be able to send in the U.S. Army, which is the ones operating the THAAD batteries, and then have them operating inside of Ukraine. And at that point, then we are escalating because then we are the ones who are actually getting directly involved in Ukraine, which does show that we're getting involved on Ukraine side and making us an active belligerent. So for that reason, I would say that we probably should do nothing, and that should be about it at the moment. However, if at least on a deterrent side of things, we could continue to conduct Minuteman III test launches out of Vandenberg if we wanted to, just to once again put out the picture that we are also nuclear armed as well, or maybe we could do something else. That would be interesting. Of course, that would take a little bit of cooking to come up with another interesting plan. But there isn't really a way that we can give them a THAAD. Also, on top of that, the THAAD is our newest air defense system. It is a matter of national security and national importance to keep that system and its abilities under wraps. And by giving the Ukrainians one of them, we're kind of pretty much blowing the lid on America's most advanced air defense capabilities. Not only that, but we are protected in Eastern Europe already. There already are a large amount of Patriot batteries that are inside of Eastern Europe at the moment, either controlled by the United States or other countries that are in NATO. We also have multiple Aegis Ashore air defense systems as well, which are wildly competent and wildly capable using the SM-3 missile, which is capable of exo-atmospheric interceptions in low Earth orbit over a span of really thousands of miles. We are largely fine. And if we needed to, I do believe that there is an Aegis Ashore system inside of Romania that actually could provide overreach into Ukraine, and if we needed it to, we could actually shoot down the intermediate range ballistic missiles from Romania, if I'm correct. And let me go make sure that there is an Aegis Ashore system inside of Romania, just to make sure.
There's also, I believe, one that was just built inside of Poland, too.
So let's see, we do have one inside of Poland. We actually have a viewer who's at that base right now in Poland. Hello, I hope you're having fun up there.
Hey.
But it's actually up here in this northern area near the city of Donetsk, and also we have one in Romania as well. And to give you all a little bit of an idea here as to why you can have faith and trust in the Aegis Ashore system, and let me just make sure that we get this correctly here. I want to make sure that we find the missile because it is the SM-3, and so let me go to the SM-3 right here. There we go. So let me go get you all the details here. The SM-3 is also on board all Ticonderoga class cruisers as well, at least the ones that are still in service in the modern day, but these things are seriously no joke. In the modern day, we generally have phased out the Block 1As and Bs and are pretty much using only the Block 2As from what I was able to read up on today, and these missiles have an insane range of nearly 900 to 1,000 miles, and during that entire range, they are capable of conducting exo-atmospheric interceptions in low Earth orbit. So this means, considering that this thing can fire 900 miles, let's just say, you know what, let's get the exact location of the Aegis Ashore system inside of Romania. So this one is in Devasilu, Romania. I know I'm mispronouncing that, sorry everyone, but we want to pull that up. So here it is. This is the exact area in Romania that it's at. The Aegis Ashore system is right over here. There it is. That's the entire base that these systems operated at. I believe these are operated by the Department of the Navy. And let me make sure. Let's see here. I understand that they are operated by the Navy. And let me see here.
Navy project.
Yeah, it is a Navy project. So there we go. The U.S. Navy was the one who made it. So these are installations operated by the Navy. So considering that it's right here in Romania, and right here in Romania is west of Bucharest, let's measure that out. So this is where the system generally was. So we're going to put this right here. And 900 miles, oh, well, what do you know? With the range of an Aegis ashore, we could actually start firing these things off while they're being launched pretty much from Kasputin Yar, if they were being launched from there. So if we wanted to, we can shoot them down from inside of NATO territory, if we just thought that it was necessary. So I hope that does address that fairly well. There's also another one in Poland that also gives another 950 miles of range up around this area, meaning that we would also be able to cover pretty much the entirety of the area of Ukraine that the state of Ukraine still controls with not only one, but two Aegis Ashore surface-to-air missile battery systems. So that does seem to be a pretty solid option rather than giving Ukraine a THAAD. And so with that, I hope that does give due diligence to figuring out what we could do to defend Ukraine. And if we ever thought that they actually were going to be hit by an intermediate range ballistic missile, the Aegis Ashore is something that we can rely on a good bit, at least within Eastern Europe. And so I hope that does address that the best we can. But before we move on into the whole supposed Thunderdome thing that's going on in between the United Kingdom and the Russian Federation at this point, which we did hear about today, I do want to make sure that we grab a couple of questions really quickly. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so let's grab our first Super Chat question of the night. And this one is that massive $500 donation from Michael Thomas. And thank you very much, Michael, for that massive support. That is the largest Super Chat we've had in a very long time. And we sincerely do appreciate it. That keeps us running and funds our work, and we do very much appreciate it. He said, the insane asylum that was hit 7 times last night, could that have been the headquarters of the North Korean officers? And there are quite a few North Korean officers in Russia, and it would seem to reason that they have to be quartered somewhere, and that could be it.
And I thank you so much for that massive support, Michael Thomas. That is the biggest super chat that we have had, I think, in a half year. And I got to thank you for the insane amount of support and helping this channel to keep on running. And to answer your question, yes, actually, from what we understand, there were North Korean generals inside of that facility, because we were able to get 2 reports today, which we are going to be getting to a little bit later on in the news, but I'll just throw out a spoiler alert at this point, and just let you all know that we were going to get to it. And from what we understand, the reason why they fired 10 Storm Shadows into the area of this little town right here and in this compound is because that was actually a major Russian command base, just like we guessed yesterday, just like we drew it up, Matthew. We knew it from the start. Like, we saw them hitting it like that, and I was like, it's a command base. It wouldn't make sense for it to be logistics. Got it dead on the money. We need to be called up by some big news companies and have them ask us for input, because we are unmitigated experts. No joke at this point on this.
Also, by the way, like, speaking of that, the weird thing is, after I put up my video today about the IRBM launch on Ukraine, oddly enough, I'm not trying to like toot my own horn or something here, Reuters actually got in touch with me and wanted to get me a quote, or get a quote from me to put in their article about the IRBM, and they thought I was a nuclear expert or something like that. And I was like, yeah, a missile expert. Apparently, I explained it pretty damn good for Reuters to reach out. But I was like, full disclosure, I'm not a weapons expert. I simply have a working knowledge of the systems. And they're still apparently wanting a quote, which is crazy to me. I'm happy to provide one, but apparently they thought I was an expert. So, thanks very much, Reuters.
Oh, they still want a quote?
Yeah, they do. They do.
Was that? Did they say that after they knocked it up the chain, or are we still getting knocked up the chain?
No, it's still going up the chain.
Oh.
Getting knocked up the chain.
Yeah, it's getting knocked up the chain. But beyond that, I have to say, from what we understand, also, by the way, Matthew, can we pump it down? Because it is hot in here. Like, it's getting to the point I'm sweating back here again. But
I'll bump it down a bit. The
Thank you.
Reuters talk is getting them sweating.
whew, man, it's nerve-wracking up in here. But beyond that, we do understand that there was a North Korean officer, maybe even North Korean general staff inside of this building, inside of this compound of buildings, because after the strikes happened, we heard that apparently a large amount of Russian officers were here, and then we also got other news that in the Kursk Oblast, which came out at the exact same time this news did, as the Russian officers being wounded and killed in Marino, we also heard that a North Korean general had been grievously wounded in some sort of a Ukrainian attack, which we were also saying that general, considering he was a general, probably would have been in a command post inside of Marino, meaning that from what we understand, that's why the Ukrainians were hitting this facility with 10 storm shadows at a time, is because there were so many high-level commanders within this building that they considered it to be a high-priority target and were just adamant on slamming this thing until they wiped out every single person that was of a high-level commander inside of this building. So from what we know, that is the case, and that is also something that we've understood, is that there were North Korean officers inside of this building, and also, let's see, it would seem to reason that they have to be quartered somewhere. And that is true. And from what we understand, it was here, of all places. We were actually believing for a little while that they probably have another command post, and this may still be the case, somewhere closer towards Kurchatov, near the Kursk nuclear power plant, or just on the southern side of Kursk at Satovo, although that may be a little too far away, or these may be backup headquarters locations, because most modern battle doctrines, including the Russians, dictate that there has to be multiple headquarters. The main headquarters is the one that is largely the closest to the front. Well, that's really where the top commanders are. It's the one closer to the front. There's another headquarters in front of that is, well, there's a lot of other headquarters in front of that are used by the actual field commanders that are actually operating the real fighting units on the battlefield. And then there are a couple of backup headquarters. There may be one or two of them behind the main headquarters further back, just in case if the first one's knocked out and everyone's killed in it, another headquarters can take over in the meantime. And then way in the back of the main line, well, in the back of the front line, there is a supply headquarters that operates most of the logistical side of things. So this one appears to have been the main one for a large amount of the forces that are near Koronivo at the moment, and it also appeared to have been the command post for the North Korean Expeditionary Force, and it appears that they may be down and out a general here very soon. So with that, I hope that addressed that incredibly well. A massive shout out to you once again, Michael Thomas. That is an unbelievable amount of support. That is truly insane. Like, we have not seen a super chat come in that has been that big for some time, a really long time, as a matter of fact. And I got to thank you massively for that support, because you're one of the folks who helps us to be able to be on air and talk the talk that we do. You're the person who has helped us to be on air long enough that Reuters would reach out and consider Matthew to be a missile expert. You are the reason why we have been around long enough to really do everything that we do and continue to cover the news the way we have been for over 1,000 days now. And I got to thank you so much once again for being one of those people, because with your support, we are able to continue to make this channel possible and to do this as our full-time job. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that it does address that the best I can. And with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one, but a massive thanks to you once again.
Indeed. And also, by the way, when Reuters reached out today, Enforcer, one thing I thought about, like, the moment I saw the email, I was like, it made me think of that Seinfeld episode of Kramer doing the Dr. Van Nostrum thing, where he was like, imitating the doctor, like pretending like, oh, yes, I'm Dr. Van Nostrum. And he was like a fake doctor and stuff as he's trying to play the part. So I was like, I should just be like, yes, I'm Dr. Matt, Enforcer Matt now, and I'm a missile expert. But I'm like, no, man, I can't do that. Like, if I end up going on an interview and pretending like I know stuff about missiles, I will trip up the moment I try to do that and end up saying something so stupid about the missiles. They'll be like, wait a minute, you're no expert on missiles. I'll be like, yeah, you called me.
Dude,
oh my God.
You should have sat there when the guy reached out. He's like, hey, I'm a big fan of the channel. I watch it all the time, and I also do this. You should have said, the name's Vandalay, Art Vandalay. I'm an architect. I'm an importer-exporter. You should have done that, man. Oh, man. That would have been hilarious, honestly. That's what you should have done, dude. That would have been even
that
funnier.
would have been so funny, man. I should have done it. I couldn't clown on Reuters like that, though, because Reuters is like one of the last like neutral like news reporting agencies out there, along with the AP. So no, I have a lot of respect respect for Reuters and also AP. I wouldn't do that to them, but it would have been a funny joke.
Yeah, I wouldn't. To be honest with y'all, the only mainstream, if you want to call it the mainstream, I don't really consider the mainstream, is they don't have like a television network that's just massively known, like CNN or Fox or ABC or CBS or any of them. But Reuters and Associated Press generally are very accurate with their reporting and generally don't pick political sides. And so I do respect those organizations a great deal. We have actually quoted Reuters a couple of times here on this channel for official government statements that have been made because they are fairly accurate in their reporting, and the Associated Press is as well. But the other organizations like CNN and Fox and stuff, those are cesspits. I wouldn't watch them. I wouldn't give them the time of day. And I'll be entirely honest with y'all, if we ever got invited on the CNN and Fox, we would turn that down because I'm not going to make a joke of this channel or what we do by going on an organization such as that. It's an entire joke from start to finish. And like some people are like, no, don't say that. That will deny you opportunities. Look, I would rather be homeless and under a bridge than get an opportunity with CNN and Fox. I know that for sure. Like, I can promise you
how
that.
it is. That's facts.
Like, am I going to really go onto a cesspit network where they don't even listen to what the hell you say? Like, let's see here. Let me think. You could go on the Aaron Burnett show on CNN, just to make it fair here, because I'm about to get Fox here in a second, so wait your turn, everyone, for Fox. But you can go on the Aaron Burnett show and have her ask you a question and then not even pay attention to it and just look down at papers for the rest of the show. Or you can go on the Sean Hannity's show and he's saying what he thinks and not asking you anything about what you think, and then he's promoting a new book he wrote at the end of the segment and then running to an ad. Like, it's like that on either one. It's like, would we want to ever go on a show like that if we were invited? Hell no. We don't. There's not even anything substantive to that kind of news. It's just fluff talk for like hours, 24 hours a day. I don't even know how they do it for 24 hours a day, but nevertheless they do. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least with that, because we got to respect for Reuters and the Associated Press. Not so much at all for CNN or Fox. None at all. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And a big thanks to you once again for the support, Michael Thomas. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat here is going to go to David Dornblaser, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, David, as well, for the very generous support, and we appreciate it very much. You're helping to get the lights on the coffee brewing. And he says, I'm tuning in late tonight, but fascinating and informative content.
And thank you so much for the support, David Dornblaser. And thank you for enjoying the fascinating and informative content. We always try and make sure to get the news out as accurately as possible. And I have a feeling that's why so many people are here tonight. Because at the peak, there was about 13,000 people here. We were literally just shy of 13,000 people. Because the news is huge. And we really don't do a lot of nuclear talk often unless if something's actually happening in that criteria. And it's kind of starting to move in that direction a little bit. So we're finally covering it. Unlike others, Matthew, who are like, oh my lord, the nuclear bombers are flying, the codes are being put in. Dude, you're having a heyday over on their channel, but they've cried wolf so badly that no one believes them anymore. It's just like any other day of the week for them. Like,
today's the only day they can actually claim that with some truth behind it.
Yeah, like every other day for like 5 years they've been saying that and it's been wrong. And today it's finally true, sort of, kind of, not really. And no one's watching them because they say it every day of the year, and so it's like any other random day. But beyond that, I got to thank you so much, Dornblaster, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be on air, reporting the kind of news that we have, doing the job that we do every single day, and being able to keep doing this well on into the future. And so a massive thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to have a voice. And that's also something I have to explain really quickly for all the folks who are new here, is that some people wonder, why do we give so much time and credence and kindness to the folks who throw in super chats? Couldn't we be like every other self-absorbed YouTuber and act like we're owed super chats and just completely ignore them? Absolutely not. That's just rude in my opinion, and I don't like when people do that. And also on top of that, the folks who super chat this channel are the people who make it possible for us to do this as a job. We really don't make any income on this channel beyond super chats. It's pretty much the only way that we're able to pay our bills and keep the lights on and also eat so we can keep working on this about 60 to 70 hours a week. And that's why we always give a massive amount of time, thanks and appreciation to every single super chatter, whether they throw in $500 like Michael Thomas did, which is legendary, or the folks who throw in a $1 super chat, which is also legendary as well. Everyone who supports this channel are truly the sponsors of the stream pretty much every night and make it possible for every single person who's here right now to hear the news, because we're able to keep doing this as a job. And so we always make sure to give them a large amount of time, respect, and appreciation, much like everyone else gets by default in the channel, because these few people, which aren't really large in number, we usually have about 30 to 40 super chatters a night, but about 100 to 130,000 people watching every night, or pretty much every stream, they make it possible for everyone to have a show, including us to be able to keep working at this job. And that's why we always give them a massive amount of thanks and appreciation, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be able to be here, and y'all wouldn't be able to be here, because there would be no way for us to keep doing this as our actual job. And so a huge thanks to you once again, Dorn Blaster and Michael Thomas, because if it was not for folks like y'all, we would not be able to make this channel possible. And with that, we are on to the last question of this segment, and then we're going to be getting right back into the news.
All right, and the last one of the segment is going to go to another channel legend that has returned yet again to support the channel with a $50 donation, and it's Trister1. And it's good to see you once again, Trister, and I hope you've been well, and thank you very much for supporting the channel once again and helping us to keep on running. And he says, take an excellent question from the chat.
And thank you so much for the support, Trister1, an old guard and a channel legend. I got to thank you so much once again for that incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to take a succulent live chat meal from the chat. And so, Matthew, what do we got for a succulent live chat?
All right, so the succulent live chat question here is going to go to Marion Deemert, who said, could this mean, with Russia firing an IRBM instead of an ICBM, could this mean that Russia doesn't have any ICBMs that are actually working?
Oh, no, they do have some ICBMs that are working. I can guarantee you that. Some of them have to be working. I'm pretty sure it's not their entire arsenal, however, but still, they do have some that are working. The IRBM was probably chosen because firing an ICBM would be next to stupid. Like, firing an IRBM even doesn't make any economic sense, but we were talking about this last night. Firing an ICBM, an intercontinental ballistic missile at Ukraine, with a conventional or kinetic warhead mounted, that made no economical sense at all, and was a waste of vital strategic materials, at least in the Russian Federation's mindset. And that's why we were talking about last night. I said, you know, maybe they would do it. Possibly, Matthew was actually leaning into they'd certainly do it with a conventional warhead of a sort, or a kinetic warhead. I said that it wouldn't make any sense at all as an ICBM, because that is just economically infeasible. And I said that they've also done hype like this before with the Kenzel and the Zircon, but it didn't really mean anything, and they probably wouldn't do it again. And then I actually ended up being wrong on that statement, because then they did do it again, and they did it with an RS-26, which means that part of what I said was right, and part of what Matthew said was right, and some parts of what we said was wrong. Generally, I was really wrong on saying that they wouldn't do anything like that at all, because they did. It's just not with an ICBM. It was with an intermediate range ballistic missile. So,
you know, oddly enough, Enforcer, the reason why I actually said that is because I actually told actually two people that have been longtime channel legends. They were actually talking to me over Discord about this. And I was telling them how I had a really bad gut feeling that Russia was about to do something extreme. And I was beginning to think they were going to do something even more extreme than launch the ICBM or the IRBM. But it turns out, thankfully, it was just a kinetic warhead, and it was not an actual armed warhead with something severe on board. I was beginning to wonder if they were going to launch the thing at Kyiv, but they didn't. They ended up launching it at Dnipro instead. But like, that's one situation where I usually have like a really bad gut feeling about something. Typically, most of the time, like I would say 75% of the time, the gut feeling is usually right, because Russia does have a pattern here, even though it seems a little bit unpredictable. Typically, when they get backed into a corner and everyone's saying Russia is simply fear-mongering and they're not going to do a thing, that's usually when Russia does something. And that's what they did, was launch that ICBM right now, or the IRBM, for other words.
And I would have to say, it is fairly interesting to see that was actually the case. I had a bit of a bad feeling, but I was like, you know, bad feelings aside, it just wouldn't make that much sense to do anything like that, because they've already kind of been doing it, and then they did it anyways. And I was like, well, once again, time and time again, logic is thrown out the window. They just do things to do it sometimes out of acts of stupidity, best way to put it. So, also, Adam McLean asked, what the heck is a kinetic warhead made of? Just to add to this a little bit, kinetic warhead is made of nothing. In short terms, it is the shell of the reentry vehicle that would have housed a nuclear weapon, re-entering and then impacting something without anything inside of it. So it's quite literally like, the best way to explain a kinetic impact is you grab a bowling ball and you just throw it at something like a wall and it just slams into the wall. That's what a kinetic is. There was no explosive inside of it that was either conventional or nuclear. It was just a solid mass that ended up impacting into something. In short, pretty much like a cannonball. It just slammed into something and that was it. There was no explosive inside of it of any sort. That's what a kinetic warhead is. So I hope that does address that fairly well to kind of clear up what a kinetic warhead even means. It's pretty much just fancy talk for saying it was like a cast iron block that they threw at something. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't have ever been able to make this thing possible. And so a huge thanks once again. And it's now time for us to move on into the rest of the news that we have. And boy howdy, like I've been telling y'all, like we've been telling y'all, we have a lot of news. So moving on over into the United Kingdom, we didn't put this one down. It's on their Twitter if y'all want to see it. So link in the description below the stream to go to our Twitter and see this. But nevertheless, apparently, according to what we've been told today, the Russian Federation has called up the United Kingdom and pretty much said in summary that the United Kingdom is now at war with Russia, and they're going to pay quite dearly in the next few days because the Russians are going to be taking direct action against the United Kingdom only. We then heard, not that long after, that a British a British Royal Marines general, I believe, said a direct statement. Actually, that would not be the uniform of a Royal Marine. I don't know why in the world I'm thinking it's a Royal Marine, but this is the British Army. That's their uniform. So without further ado, this is a statement that was made just a little while ago by a British Army general.
If the British Army was asked to fight tonight, it would fight tonight. And I don't think anybody in this room should be under any illusion that if the Russians invaded Eastern Europe tonight, then we would meet them in that fight. That would be the first point I'd make.
Thank you, General. Yeah, no, I'm absolutely certain that if the Russians invaded Eastern Europe, the British Army would be there. I'm a reserve officer, so I would probably be there with them.
He seemed really excited about that. He was like, I'll be there with him. It's like, yippee.
I'll be there too, Governor.
The general was like, serious. He was like, we be there tonight. And then that guy's like, well, I'll be there too. We're going on an adventure. It's like, all right, man. It's like, he's got patriotic fervor behind him. I respect it. But nevertheless, it does seem as though the British are ready for whatever may come. The honest truth is that the Russians are probably just yapaholics. And so they just said this to say it. But, nevertheless, considering what the Russians did just a little while ago, a lot of people are kind of asking some questions about this, and Putin did warn Britain that they're now in a direct conflict with Russia, and Britain has said that they are ready to fight tonight, as that British Army general was saying, and a lot of people have been putting in their thoughts, and some people are saying that the Russians are just yapaholics. Others are saying that Russia is picking a fight with the UK, which literally means the rest of NATO all as one. Some others people said something bad's going on, I can feel it, and others said that they're a little bit unsure and undecided. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so on this question right here, about 48% of the audience said Russia is simply yapping as usual, while 31% said Russia is trying to pick a fight with the UK, and 16% said something bad is going on. And also, just in case you were wondering, why all of a sudden is Putin going after Britain? What's caused this all of a sudden? And if you weren't aware, it's actually the storm shadow strikes that took place on Putin's underground bunker, which was below the sanatorium that we just saw the other day. The storm shadows were used for the first time in mainland Russia by Ukraine, and that's what caused a sudden tension to really flare up. And we heard today that the Moscow ambassador actually called up the British ambassador inside the UK and told them that they are in a direct conflict with Russia and they should watch out in the next coming days. So a pretty clear threat right there. And then obviously you just heard the video right there. The Britain is saying they're ready to fight. So it sounds like something is really getting tense in the background. And also Zaluzhny, who is now the UK ambassador from Ukraine, he's now getting really riled up today, saying that World War III is already started. And it looks like pretty much everybody involved with the UK diplomacy between Russia, Ukraine, and also the UK, it looks like they're all getting really, really testy today, and something is happening diplomatically in the background that maybe the public is not fully aware of. So I'm actually with the 31%. It sounds like Russia is trying to pick a fight with the UK, but that's not smart because obviously they have a lot of nuclear weapons, and I'm not really sure what Russia would be trying to achieve by doing that. But Enforcer, what say you?
I really don't know what they'd be achieving as well, and I actually, considering that the the Russians actually did launch an IRBM overnight. I would have to consider that the Russians are probably trying to pick a fight with the United Kingdom, but I don't know why they would pick a fight with the UK out of everyone. They could have called up the ambassador to Estonia and done the same threat, and it would mean the same thing because they're all NATO countries. So I don't really know what the exact point of this is, but we will be seeing in the next few days what it means. But I have a feeling they are trying to pick a brawl with the UK, and I don't think they know the history of the UK, because out of any country in the world, I think they're the one who has won the third largest amount of battles in world history, only being beaten by the Republic of France and also the United States of America. But with that, I actually believe they are second. I think they may be second or third. I'm not exactly sure on the exact count or number, but the United States and the UK at this point are pretty much neck and neck with the amount of battlefield victories that they have achieved in their history. But nevertheless, moving on from that and on back into the Russian Federation, and specifically the area of Marino, we were able to hear big news, speaking of what Michael Thomas was actually asking about a little while ago, on what happened with the strikes at the town of Marino. So moving back here on the maps, just to show you all this is Marino. This is the parks around Marino. These are the slums right outside of Marino. And this is a little bit of the town right outside of Marino. But nevertheless, this was the headquarters that was stricken the other day. And from what we were told, and let me make sure to get to the first piece of news that we have right here. From what we were told, Dosia Shipiona said that 18 Russian servicemen were killed, while 30 were wounded, including 3 North Korean soldiers, as a result of Ukrainian missile strikes on a command post in Marino in the Kursk Oblast on the 20th. The majority of the casualties are said to be Russian. I can hear you now.
I didn't hear the internet like went completely out there for a second.
It's a cyber attack. Oh man, well I'm glad it didn't go completely out. I was getting concerned there. So hopefully the stream is still fine. The stream is still fine actually. It looks like it's popped back up. It's live and
hey, we're back. We're back.
We're back. Hey, I'm so sorry about that, everyone. We are connected to Ethernet. Weirdly enough, Maddie, did the internet go out for you as well?
Yeah, we still had a signal coming in from the Ethernet, but it was not receiving or transmitting any data for 30 seconds, so kind of weird.
Oh, Lord! It's a DDoS attack. I don't even know what that is. Sorry about that, everyone. Sorry about the delay there. Just once again adding to the mystery and intrigue of tonight's news. But moving on from that, it does appear that the majority of the casualties are said to be Russian officers from the Southern and Eastern Military District, and the Deputy Commander of the Leningrad Military District, Lieutenant General Valery Solichuk, was also allegedly present at the command post during the strikes, and his condition is unknown at the moment, but he's most likely down with a sickness. But still, it does sound as though the attack ended up getting quite a decent amount of people, and we also got to hear that apparently a senior North Korean general was wounded in a recent Ukrainian strike, Western officials said Thursday, and it seems as though that may have happened in Marino from what we know. So it appears that was, as this channel predicted yesterday, using deductive reasoning, a command post that the Russian Federation was using, and the damage was quite severe. And so we are very happy to hear that. It is good to know that our analysis is once again dead on point, because anyone who was here last night would have heard and known that this was a command post and not a communications or supply hub. So with that, we are now going to be moving on from that little bit of news right there in Marino, which is actually quite significant, at least in the impact on the Kursk Oblast, and we're now going to be moving just a few miles south and into the active battlefield in Kursk, where we got to see that the SOF was continuing operations within the Kursk Oblast, which we were able to see in this clip right here, as they drove through the checkpoint.
Also, by the way, Enforcer, I'm not sure if this is accurate or not. I was doing some looking here. I'm also getting reports from the live chat. That might have been a nationwide momentary outage of the internet. That might not have just been us, according to what I'm seeing.
And also, I'm seeing some people saying that audio is shot. Let me listen to it really quickly.
I'm looking here. I'm also getting reports from the live chat. That might have been a nationwide momentary outage of the internet. That might not have just been us, according to what I'm seeing.
And also, I'm seeing some people saying that audio is shot. Let me listen to it really quickly. So we are totally fine. I think
that sounds good.
Yeah, really quickly, just refresh your browser if you were having any kind of audio lag issues, if you were hearing this somehow, because that generally should fix the issue. So with that, we are going to be moving on back into this clip and taking a look at it. But it sounds as though there was a brief internet outage nationwide. That's very interesting to hear. We see them now fixing up their Humvee and now driving through the fields at top speed.
Also, I can hear that keyboard clears a bell, so the audio's back to normal.
Yes. And so, let's see here. We can see them driving past a destroyed minivan.
Oh, a mini pint.
If you are having audio issues, it is not an issue on our end. It is an issue on your end. Make sure to refresh your Google Chrome browser or whatever browser you are on, or completely restart your YouTube app to be able to listen to the stream and the audio correctly. Make sure to refresh your computer at any given moment on the browser, whatever browser you may be using, or to entirely shut down the browser and restart it, as the audio issues will disappear. That is, once again, a report from the main deck. Thank you. But anyways, moving on from that and on into our next clip inside the Kursk Oblast, we were able to see some Ukrainian FPV drones doing an interesting little blunder. They ended up colliding midair. We've never seen this before, but here it was. Oh! Ole mole ole. But moving on from that into the next clip, we also got to see that today, of all days, the 80th Air Assault Brigade actually captured 26 Russians. Holy moly. That's a whole platoon, Matthew.
They got them packed in like ants.
Like sardines, maybe. I've never seen ants packed in, but I've seen some sardines packed in.
It's surstroming.
Ugh. Oh man, remember when that whole group got together and they did that and it was kind of cringe?
It was cringe. Although surstroming is like extremely smelly, like very bad. It'll make you actually throw up.
Man, well, I don't know, man. I had that last dab today. That wasn't that bad.
Man, it was my first dab actually. Also, it's hot sauce, by the way. Like that means something else. It was hot sauce. Just to make it clear, it was hot ones. It's just so nobody gets any like misinformation here. We're not turning like the oh man, the fiend. We're not turning into him.
And we see the Russian prisoners right here. We're going to be cutting this clip a little short because, it's just about showing the prisoners. We can't unmute the audio because there's copyrighted music playing over the whole thing. But moving on from that and into the area near Bolshoi-Solodskoye, we also got to see the operation of some of the Wild Hornets drones in the Kursk region right here. Now we're going to be muting the music, but we can see an FPV drone being used right here.
Send the surstroming. I can't handle surstroming. I'm not going to be able to even open it, so please don't send it in the mail. It's going to be like a biohazard over here.
Well, let's see. I see a lot of people talking about it. Let's see. I'm sure it smells like sardines. I've heard it smells worse. And let's see. Okay. All right, we're going to get rid of that person. The bots are kind of coming in nice and good tonight, Matthew. They're just kind of like mixing in, I guess, because we're getting like 100 chats a minute every minute right now. So it's a little bit harder to get them, but I just saw one and took care of them.
I'm going to turn on air defense because I can't catch them all. They're going so fast. So let me turn on Enforcer AD.
And so the Enforcer air defense is now on. We also got to see that 4 Russians were captured from the 810th Naval Infantry Brigade as well. That's the end of that clip, but another 4 prisoners taken. Generally, they got a lot of prisoners on the active front today in that area. But moving on from that and down towards the region of the location unknowns, we also got to see a Ukrainian cat in a bag. It's kind of like a cat in a hat, but maybe even a cuter. Look at that.
Oh, look at that. A cat in a tactical bag.
Man, you've heard of Elf on the Shelf. Now get ready for cat in a bag. But moving
Or
on.
cat in the hat.
Huh?
Or the cat in the hat.
Perhaps. But moving on from that, we also got to see a Bradley after the fight. Crew's okay. The title let us know that. But this Bradley did end up getting damaged a little bit. The barrel was bent. The radiator appears to be blowing steam. A usual occurrence on the Hot Dog Man show. It's just blowing steam. We can also see the hatch has shrapnel damage. We also see the front glass on the optics was also ruptured as well. And that's the end of that clip. But still, the Bradley made it out. And the Bradley is legendary, as many people know. We also got to see the Russian casualty report over the past 24 hours as well. And
oh man, zero Bobcats. What the hell's going on, man? That's a bummer. But dang, the troop losses are staying high. And yes, to the question that many people ask every night, these do include the North Koreans. That includes probably those 3 North Koreans that were capped over there in the sanatorium as well.
Man, they would cap him, busted. But beyond that, Miss Nisa, the keeper of the records, told us that the weekly average stays over 1,500, and November is estimated to reach 45,000 more troop losses. Most categories are at or above prior averages, and that is incredibly good to know, and a big shout out to Miss Nisa, keeper of the records. But nevertheless, 1,510 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed along with the North Koreans over the past 24 hours, along with 24 APCs, 97 supply trucks, 8 main battle tanks, 50 artillery pieces, 57 drones, 1 MLRS, and 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems. All in all, it was a pretty good day for the Ukrainians, and we are expecting that it will continue to be a good day for them well on into the future on the battlefield. We also got to see some more examples of fighting in the 3rd Brigade inside of the area around Vovchansk, which we were able to see right here. It's just a general montage of them using their drones and walking around and talking. It's a fun time out there in the 3rd Brigade. You can see this fella here showing off the drone in their phone as well. We see them getting the drone ready to fly. Oh, look, they have a little coin right there. A challenge coin, even, perhaps. But that's the end of the clip. And nice to see that they're out there doing good work in that direction. Moving on from that and down into the Kupiansk area, we also got to see a Russian tank ending up being destroyed by an M109 Paladin. There is the Russian tank right there. Just moving on along. And we can now see the Ukrainian Paladin. Any second now. Oh.
Is that a smoke screen?
Oh, no, that was the artillery hitting the tank and blowing it sky high. Holy moly.
Dang, I might need a replay on that one. It lagged. I missed the whole thing on the explosion part.
It's all good, Maddie. This one honestly was just infrared. It wasn't that impressive to see. And also, we have so much more to cover, and we're running out of time. I'm not going to lie. So that's why I'm trying to, speed it up just a little bit. Oh, look at that. A nice little burning pyre, even. Oh, my God.
Oh, damn.
Holy moly.
The flash was so bright, you had to zoom out -10.
Man, future's so bright, you had to wear shades. And look at that. That Russian tank was burned to a crisp.
That's the way I like them. Burned crispy. Well done.
You know something that Colonel Sanders and an average Ukrainian colonel has in common, Matthew?
Well, what do they have in common?
They like them crispy.
They like them chunky.
But moving on from that, we also got to see the Ukrainian counterintelligence hitting Russian targets up in the northern area of the front line as well. Oh, and we're going to be muting that. They're playing the trap beats, of course. Like Zoink Scoop, those beats be bussin'. Or something like that. We can now see even more FPV drones slamming down on into the Ruski Bliet.
Oh, Jack, got some profanity going on in the live chat. Whoa, hold on.
Whoa, hey, Jack, whoa. You can't be doing that in here. What the hell's wrong with you?
Oh, man. Adam Glegg said, Colonel Sanders will blow you out, too. That's what I heard as well. Apparently, he was a serious fella. He didn't mess around one bit. So yeah, they might have that in common as well.
Whoa, Jack, whoa. And we can see them hitting a nice, it looked like a UAZ, and now they're hitting a Buhanka as well. And that's the end of the clip, but wonderful to see. Absolutely amazing. But moving on from that clip, and further down the line into the area around the town of Zarichny, which is pretty much Torske, we also got to see a Ukrainian tank of the 63rd Brigade saved from a terrible fate. There is the Ukrainian tank. Do y'all want to see the terrible fate it was saved from? Well, watch the video and you will see. It was an FPV drone. It was jammed by an electronic warfare system and ended up slamming down harmlessly just away from the tank. The boosh, right there. Oh no. Oh no, the live chat's
you
going
saw it too?
crazy.
You
Oh
saw it
no.
too.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
God.
Dude, I'm about to turn
Oh,
into
I
that.
will admit the phrasing was a little bit weird, but that was just the way they said it. They meant something different.
Dude, I'm about to turn into that little ape from Planet of the Apes, like the remake one. I'm gonna be like, oh no, oh no. I'm gonna
Yeah.
turn into that in a second from that one. Like, oh no. Dude, and also someone said Colonel Sanders killed someone. I think if I remember the story, he did at some point. Colonel Sanders was a baller, y'all. Like, he didn't play around. He was not only frying chicken, he was frying suckers. But moving on from that and down in the Chasiv Yar, we did get to see an Su-25 firing some unguided rockets.
Oh, I like that GoPro mount. It's pretty cool. Literally right in front of his helmet.
And there went the rockets, and now he's flipping that thing over.
And what type of aircraft is this again?
That is an Su-25, a close air support
okay.
aircraft.
Good deal.
And so moving on from that and down into the area of progress, we also get to see the 109th Territorial Defense Force, the Muramasa, knocking out more Russians with their drones. Oh, sorry, we're going to be muting that, everyone. So sorry there. We can see that they got obliterated down there. SpongeBob, me boy. Hitting him with the Krabby Patty secret sauce.
Man, that came in left field. I was like, what the hell? It's like the lag like broke up what you were saying. So the last part of it came in and said something about the secret sauce. I was like, oh, what?
Oh man, so we're dealing with lag now because of the whole internet outage thing.
Yeah, it's definitely not my computer. I can tell you that for a fact.
Well, I know it wasn't mine either because we both went out at the same time. So it's like, I guess that's just a worldwide internet thing or a local internet thing, maybe a regional one. The Russians, they know. Oh, and here comes an FPV. Oh, boosh, and dang, look at that right there. An amazing hit, solid even. And destroyed, as one would know. Oh, and we can see a Buhanka pickup here trying to drive through the damaged roads, and holy moly, they slammed right into him. Goodness gracious.
It was went from a Buhanka pickup to a Buhanka put down.
That was a good one.
Man, those Ukrainians are always putting those Russians down. They shouldn't do that.
Man, it's a shame, really. I think Ukraine ought to launch an IRBM at Moscow, just to test it, I'm just kidding.
I think the Russians are getting depression at this point. They're getting put down so much.
Oh man, I'm telling you. Oh man, I get no respect around here. Oh man, I try and invade Ukraine and they do nothing but disrespect me. Oh man, I'm telling you. One time I tried to drive a Buhanka into the front line and oh man, they boomed my Buhanka. Oh man, I'm telling you.
It's been a long time since Rodney's come out.
Oh man, I'm telling you, he hasn't come out in a while. Oh man, what a crowd, what a crowd. Oh man, we got like 10,202 people here. Oh man, I'm telling you. Oh boy, what a crowd. Oh man, that's a bigger crowd than I've ever seen. Oh man, but I'll tell you, a crowd that's bigger, the crowd waiting to run a train on Chris's mom. Oh man, I'm telling you.
But moving on from that down into the area near Solodove, we also got to see the 68th Brigade taking a couple of pot shots at the Russians, like this one right here.
Oh, look. Oh, that one guy that jumped, he got the front of it. Jeez, he made a big mistake.
Man, I'm telling you. He's getting no respect around here. Oh, man. But moving on from that and down the line and further on down towards Urozhne, we did get to see some Russians getting hit around this area at Dani. And we're going to be meeting the rock. And we can see a grad that actually had overturned on the street getting hit right there. And that's the end of that clip right there. And moving on from that and into our next one in Urozhne, we also get to see the Ukrainians repelling an assault by the Russians' armored convoy around this area as well. And we can see here the Russian column moving through the open field. A bad mistake, of course, as everyone knows. And we see them just continuing to hit him again and again. Ivan and his boys were up there on their tiny APC, and they were getting pounded. Let's see here. Someone said we're 22. 22, no offense. What the hell's that got to do with anything?
I'm not 22.
I'm not 22. Yeah, he's 24.
I'm just gonna
actually.
repeat the whole statement. I'm 24. I'm 2 years older. You gotta put respect on my name.
Oh man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. Oh man, we put on a news segment better than 40-year-olds, but people want to discredit us just because we're young. Oh man, I'm telling you. Oh man, I don't know. I mean, we're just two guys down in the basement. Oh man, real no respect. Oh man, my parents don't call me real news either. Oh man, if you want to make 100K, go work at Chuck E. Cheese. Oh man, I heard they need another rat in the suit. Oh man, I'm telling you.
And on from that and on out of this clip, big shout out to the Presidential Brigade that was able to conduct that hit today on the Russians at Ruzhane. We're now going to be moving a little bit behind the lines where we're able to see a Russian training center also getting hit as well. And look at them go. They're just running around out there at the training field. It's a fun time for them. It's not going to be fun much longer. You could play the Jaws music over this thing because the shark attack's about to happen. But here's a little group of them. Isn't that cute? And we got a little questioning emojis popping up. Popping up. That's a new word, by the way. We're putting that one in the Oxford Dictionary.
Oh, just popping it up. Also, is that green grass or is that just a color issue?
That's green grass.
Oh, that's kind of odd.
Oh! Holy moly! It was an airburst! Ooh! That was a rough one down there, I tell you.
Oh, they're surrendering?
Well, there's no one to surrender to, man. They're 50 miles behind the lines. They're just getting obliterated.
I thought they were going to go ahead and give up, before it began.
Dude, they're still inside of Russia. Attack him, slams down on top of him. Don't shoot! I surrender.
I mean, that would be the smartest thing to do. They would never do that, but if they really thought about it, they probably should.
Man, this is the most realistic training they've ever had, though, man. It's like they're really on the front lines.
It's pretty good right here. That teal colored truck over there is messing me up though. It looks fake.
That is a good point though, man. It's like why is it that color? That is such a weird, vibrant color to put a vehicle in. I don't know. I've never seen one like that before, even in America. But moving on from that and out of the area, it's now time for us to move on down into Krasnodar, where we got to see that just outside the city of Krasnodar, a major attack had happened. And the fire illuminated the night sky. We also got to see it from another angle, and it was very impressive. Take a look at it. Ahwayet.
Oh, man. Also, did you say what caused this, by the way? Because I couldn't ever find a cause for it earlier.
I couldn't either. That was the thing. I was like, I don't know what exactly this is yet, but we will probably find out tomorrow.
Yeah, I'd heard everything from the Lucky Strike Russian man came back and threw a cigarette out and started it. And I heard also that some people were saying that apparently the Ukrainian drones attack didn't cause the fire.
It's just but a grand mystery, Matthew. I wouldn't know, honestly, which one it is either, because we haven't gotten a statement from the Ukrainians on what caused it, or really even the Lucky Strike guy just popping back up again. We haven't heard anything definitive yet, so most of it's rumors, so we just know something major is on fire out there, but we don't know what it is. But we also got to hear a direct statement today from the North Koreans as well, just in case the whole nuclear thing wasn't over yet. And this is the statement. North Korea's Kim Jong-un accuses the United States of stoking tension and warns of nuclear war, and he was also toking tension as well. But nevertheless, we do understand that it seems as though the North Koreans are also trying to get involved in this whole nuclear thing, as this cringe meme is right down here below it. I'm not gonna lie, man. Listen, folks, this isn't political. I'm just saying that memes like these are always cringe, no matter who they come from. I feel like that's a pretty definitive rule.
It's so cringe, it's almost funny.
Yeah, it's like one of those Facebook boomer memes, man. It's like I don't get this one at all. Really,
I was trying to make sense of it. I was laughing at the cringe of something in the meme, but I don't understand the meme itself. It's going over my head.
Yeah, that's the thing that's kind of making me cringe on it. It's like I just don't know. It's like insert someone's political heroes, I guess, and to make someone weep over them. I don't know. I'm like, I don't really know what this is. I have no clue. But yeah, that's a weak meme game right there. Better memes need to be made. Like, also, someone said, stop projecting. No, look, if this had literally been the current president, I would say this is a stupid meme as well. Like, I don't even get the punchline. Like, what is the punchline? I don't even know. But moving on from that and out of that meme, it is now time for us to move on back into Kyiv. And it's time for us to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here in the past 24 hours. And now he's in a wooden room with a very interesting painting. I don't even know what's going on with that painting back there. But nevertheless, here's the speech.
Дорогі українці, українки, 21 листопада Україна відзначає День Гідності та Свободи. Згадує дві українські революції, вшановує те, які українці насправді. Сьогодні ж наш божевільний сусід вкотре показав, який він насправді, як він зневажає і гідність, і свободу, і взагалі життя людей. І як він боїться. Боїться настільки, що застосовує вже нові ракети. І шукає по світу, де б ще знайти зброю. То в Ірані, то в Північній Кореї. Сьогодні була нова російська ракета. Всі характеристики – швидкість, висота міжконтинентальної балістичної. Зараз тривають експертизи. Очевидно, що Путін використовує Україну як полігон. Очевидно, що Путін боїться, коли поруч з ним просто є нормальне життя. Коли люди просто мають гідність. Коли країна просто хоче бути і має право бути незалежною. Путін робить все, що завгодно, тільки б не дати сусіду вирватись з його рук. І я дякую всім українцям, усім українкам, які захищають Україну від цього зла. Стійко, хоробро, міцно, гідно. Це одне з головних слів про Україну – гідність. І це слово, яке, мабуть, вже ніколи не скажуть про Росію. Сьогодні я підпишу указ, яким введено в силу рішення РНБО саме про гідність, про повагу до справжніх героїв, героїв України, до усіх наших гідних людей і про чесне ставлення до тих, хто обрав іншу сторону, обрав Росію і підлість. В першому списку таких осіб 34 прізвища. Слава Україні!
And with that,
Hiram Slava.
Hiram Slava. And that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky. As I'm seeing that Matthew says he gets the punchline now. I still don't get it. And I was trying to see if anyone explained it to where I'd get it. But nevertheless...
Elon's the Rocket Man. Like, so they said, there's new Rocket Man because Elon's apparently the new Rocket Man. It's not like super hilarious or anything like that when you really get it, but I get it now.
Okay, now I get it, but... I'm not laughing. Like I get it, but it's not making me laugh, man.
Crowd.
Like, listen, I'm just saying though, like, meme's supposed to make me laugh. Like, it's supposed to be like SpongeBob, me boy, getting the Krabby Patty with the secret sauce. I'll just be honest with y'all. Political memes are not my thing. I just think they're always cringe. Because like politics is like a very tough thing to meme. Like, it's almost impossible, in my opinion, to meme and make it good. But nevertheless, it is time for us to get on into the second segment of this stream because we have loads and loads and loads of things to talk about with all of y'all. Loads of y'all have asked questions, many questions, long-lasting questions, and I would like to thank all of the people in the live chat who have given us the chance to be able to talk to every one of you. It means a great deal to us that we get to talk to all of you. And I have to, of course, give a massive thanks to the people of the United States of America for allowing us to have a voice and to be able to continue on our struggle. I also want to be able to thank every one of you in the Lee Spring Army for getting this stream up into baller heights. We are in the top 60 in America almost every day now, and it's absolutely crazy to see this. And I have to thank you all once again for getting us up to the same height. I have to stop doing that because I found a way to do that without like just grinding my vocal cords, but it doesn't last long. But beyond that, it is pretty crazy. I got to thank everyone who has been watching tonight. We've had about 13,000 people on tonight. There's still about 9,000 of y'all on because yesterday we were actually number 59 in America for the top live stream. We beat out some interesting names like PBS, like Disney Junior, Red Bull Gaming.
No,
Red Bull Gaming is like a really big one.
Yeah, they're pretty big in esports.
Oh, dang. We beat out Law and Crimes Trials. We beat out, let's see,
Dave Portnoy. Hey, look at that.
Oh, what? Dude, we beat him?
Yeah, apparently so. That's
No.
pretty interesting.
No way. This guy goes around eating pizza. We beat that guy. Man, that's crazy. I didn't think about it until we beat
One
the
bite,
swag
the rules?
editor. Huh?
I said one bite, the rules.
Oh, I just heard you go, yeah, but you know the rules. I was like, huh? I was like, what? Let's see here. Who
It's a
else?
lag.
Who else did we beat? We beat Crypto Banter, I would assume. And let's see, Relaxing Jazz. So we beat some very interesting folks. Sadly, we didn't beat some that we usually beat. Usually, most of the political people we didn't beat. They've kind of been riding the high of what happened with the whole election, like both sides have. So they've like skyrocketed in the charts. But usually, before the like election whole thing happened, we were actually beating them like daily. Like Ben Shapiro, we were absolutely slaughtering Ben Shapiro and the Young Turks like on a daily basis. I think most of the time the Young Turks weren't even on the chart. So that's an honor to have. Also, I gotta say, it's a little weird to me. I just gotta say that it is a little weird to me that this guy in particular, Matthew, you know this guy, beat the
He's
charges.
back?
Yeah, he beat the charges and he's somehow number 51, a couple of slots above us. Don't really know how that happened. A little weird, not gonna lie. But
Yeah, I don't get that either. I thought he was canceled. I thought.
So-
Also, why do you have hashtag Mr. Beast below his deal right there? That's a little bit weird.
huh.
That's not good. That's not good considering the current allegations. Yeah, they ought to take that away, I think.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Is he trying to infer something here? Interesting. That is a little weird. But let's see. Someone let's see. IMV for C for NCY said he went from 32,000 average viewers to 14,000. Yeah, but that isn't exactly, disappearing for what the guy did. And it's not like he didn't do it. I mean, he like stepped down from something because he did it. And like he said he did. So it's like that's a little weird to see that he even still has 14,000 people watching, That's a little interesting. But beyond that, we're still number 59. And ain't no one taking that away from us. So pretty happy to see that. I got to thank everyone who has been watching so far. And of course, the LSA just continues to grow stronger and stronger by the day. It's very interesting to see that. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best we can, at least with what we have so far. And with that, it is now time for us to move on into that question segment. And also, I believe that we already have a question from many folks, and it seems as though a lot of people have a very concerning answer to this. But Matthew, what are people thinking about that question? What are you thinking about it as well?
All right. So the question says right here, it says, former Ukrainian General Zaluzhny says that World War III has already started right now. And do you agree with him? About 46% said yes, World War III has already begun, while 28% said no, World War III is not here yet. And 16% said, it'll remain probably a regional war confined to Ukraine. And also, by the way, remember that Zaluzhny is now the Ukrainian ambassador to the UK. That is his new position, and he is getting a lot of behind-the-scenes knowledge here. And apparently, according to Zaluzhny's logic, with North Korea sending troops to Russia to fight in the war, also with China sending over components to help Russia create their missiles, and also with Iran sending Shaheeds to Russia, that is his version and his definition of a world war scenario. So he says it's already started, and honestly, for me, I would have to say that it's not quite here yet. I'm with the 28%. We are getting very close to it. Like, make no mistake, we are getting very, very close, and the signs are there that it could be around the corner, but I don't think we're over the actual point of no return just yet. So I'm with the 28%, but Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my opinion, I would believe that World War III has not begun yet. I would have to say that I'm with the 28%. World War III is not here yet until someone in NATO gets attacked. If the Russians ended up attacking the United Kingdom in a couple of days, and that actually did happen, then I would say World War III has begun. But for now, it's still a war in between Russia and Ukraine, and the war hasn't spanned out from that, so I would say that it's not a world war yet, at least in my opinion. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And Matthew, it's time to get into those succulent live chat meals. And so what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and our first super chat, the last segment of the night, is going to go to none other than John Garner, who's a channel legend himself and throws in a $50 donation. And huge shout out to you, John, for always supporting the channel and for being an excellent channel viewer, and we love having you. And John says, shout out to my uncle Tony. He said he wrote the guidance software for our cruise missiles. He had a few drinks and pulled onto River Road in front of a one-ton truck, and he died upon impact. I'm very sorry to hear that, by the way, John. It's very unfortunate news, by the way. He said it happens, but not to me, and I'm in recovery.
And I thank you so much for the support, John Garner. That's unfortunate to hear, however. But that is very interesting to hear that he wrote guidance software for the cruise missiles. I'm supposing the Tomahawks or maybe some other variety of cruise missile, but that's still very interesting to hear. And I thank you for sharing that. That's really cool that he did that. And also, I hope that you have good luck with recovery. Me personally, well, I would be lying if I said I didn't have a drink. I don't drink, but we have had a drink before. Matthew and me both actually drank on the trip that we had out west. I was on the Amtrak train, and they asked me in the afternoon. We were just getting up towards San Jose on the train, and they asked me, "What do you have?" And I said, "I'll have a rum and coke." And so I had it, and it was pretty good. But then I haven't drank past that. So, like, that was just my only drink. I've never really been one to drink. Not that it's bad. It's just, I don't know. For some reason, I just don't go out of my way to drink for some reason. But for others, that is always a bit of an issue. And I hope that you are able to do fairly well with the whole recovery side of things. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of personal experience with that, so I can't give a lot of input or inspirational words on that. But still, I got to say, best of luck to you, and thank you so much for the support, John Garner, and sharing that with us, because that is very interesting to hear that he actually did develop some of the programming for the cruise missiles. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And also, I heard Pele Smith said, how was it at the Enforcer? Did you like it? It was pretty good. Yeah, it tasted pretty decent. Like, I don't think it was bad at all. But you know, like, would I drink it? Like, am I going to go out of my way to have rum and cokes endlessly? Not really. I just generally do not like drinks that are sweet. And rum and coke was a sweet drink. And so I was like, you know, it's all right. But I'd just rather have, like, milk or water or sweet tea, maybe. But that's sometimes really pushing it, honestly. And let's see, what's another?
Well, me personally, I personally did not have a rum and coke. I had Sauvignon Blanc because I'm a sophisticated bastard.
Oh, is that so?
Yes, yes.
It sounded like you just cut off mid-sentence. I wasn't sure if that was lag or what. I was like, heavens. But still, let's see. Some people say, I only drink with, let's see. Some people say, let's see, gin and tonic. Aaron wants us to try a drink. I'm not really a big person to be like, yeah, let's go drinking. You know, like I've never been one to do that. And I think largely I would want to stay sober because I like to be in control of my faculties and senses, and also with how much we end up working, which is sometimes, like recently, it's generally from when we wake up to when we go to sleep. There really isn't any time to drink or even get tipsy at all because we have to be at our 100% all day, every day for this republic that we live in. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you once again for support, John Garner. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, by the way, just for the record, since I didn't say this, I don't drink, like, for the record. I've only had, like, 1 or 2 drinks my entire life, and it was very, very small amounts, and that's good enough for me. But anyways, moving on here to our next super chat. This one goes to Made in Canada 182, who puts in a $25 donation. And thank you very much, Made in Canada, for that 25 Canadian, and we appreciate it very much. And they said, Enforcers, amazing new intro, absolutely amazing, and long live the LSA, and take one from the chat, please.
And I thank you so much for the support, and I thank you incredibly for enjoying that intro, Made in Canada 182. It took a lot of work to get it to that point, and I actually have already told the composer that y'all were absolutely massive fans of the new intro, the amazing intro, the long-lasting intro, and I've already told the composer that we're going to be cooking again. Now, when the next thing is cooked, it probably will be in next year, sometime around February, because currently the composer is busy working on other projects for other companies like Disney Pixar. So I am going to have to wait for them to get some free time again, but we are still going to be putting out more music, better music, long-lasting music, and not only that, we have all the rights to the current Armed Forces medley that we have. And so I'm going to be telling y'all this. I'm going to let y'all know this. in a little while, we are going to be putting that out as a music video onto the channel, and that may actually end up becoming the channel trailer for a while, because it's just that good. And we want people to be able to see it and kind of get an idea of what the channel emphasizes, because if we emphasize anything and it was ever put to music, that was it, because that's the first time we've ever had anything that's been Enforcer made by Enforcer Media. So that is a pretty cool thing, and we're also still trying to figure out what else to do in the future to possibly raise more funds for more music. And one thing that we are thinking about doing, and this would be really cool, generally though the premise still is that I'm just paying out of pocket to have this stuff done, because me personally, whether it's funded or not, I absolutely love doing it. It was a fun thing to do all the way through, and not only that, the end product was amazing. So even if we are able to fund it or not, I'm still largely going to be throwing money out of pocket to do that for eternity. It's just that I got to be able to, you know, budget that and save up enough so it's not going to be quick. If I'm funding it entirely on my own, it'll take a couple of months at a time for new music to come out, but we are still going to be putting it out. One thing though that I really liked that Matthew brought up is, well, actually Avari Mandabratis brought it up, and then Matthew brought it up, and then I thought it was a good idea, and then I credited it to Matthew, and it was actually Avari Mandabratis that brought it up. But beyond that, vinyl records of the song with a really cool album cover would be really cool. And so that's something that we were thinking about doing, is possibly to raise more funds, is to do vinyl record releases of the current song, so that way y'all can get a physical copy of the song in a vinyl record, and we can also raise funds for more music. That would be a pretty cool way to get y'all something out of it, and then also get us more funds to be able to make more music, because I would absolutely love to do that. The next music that's going to be coming out here soon is going to be the anthem of the LSA, the White and Gold, and also the Star Spangled Banner. And if I can figure this out on the call side of things, we may even throw in a third song. And I'm generally leaning towards the third song is going to be Over There or Columbia, the Gem of the Ocean. It's going to be one of those if we can fit in a third song. And what I'm kind of going with right now, too, to let y'all know this, is that we are going to make the one LSA song, but pretty much every other song is going to be an American song. We are going to be trying to eventually make foreign songs, but for now, I want to really flesh out all of the American songs that we possibly can, because the LSA was founded in America. It's in America, and generally most of the audience is American, so we want the album to be able to speak to the largest amount of the audience possible, and considering that 55% of everyone in the audience is an American, that would make the most sense for now. But in the future, we would be moving on into British songs, and then most likely German and French songs to fill up the largest, I guess you could say, analytical groups. But also the Australians are a really big group as well, so we might do Waltzing Matilda at some point in the future. That would be cool as well. But I think that would be amazing. I think that would be incredibly cool. And also, let's see. I see a lot of people saying that would be pretty cool. Let's see. Let me see here. I would download it. That's something that we would do. Like if you buy it, you can get a digital copy as well. Like you get a digital copy and a vinyl, but the digital copy will be included with the vinyl, so that way you can play it while you're on the road, you know, if you just wanted to listen to it. But still, I think that would be great. And Matthew, do you think we might be able to get that done? Get her done?
And you're talking about making the vinyl record copies of our anthem?
Of the Armed Forces medley.
Probably so. We can probably make that happen. The only question I do have, though, because I know that vinyl is making a comeback, like that is something that's becoming in style once again. But how many people out there actually have a record player to play vinyl? And would most people be interested in that, or would it be something that only a select few would want because they don't have a record player?
That's an interesting question. And I don't know what the answer to that would be. Matthew, let's run a poll on that. Ask folks, do y'all have a record player? Yes or no? And let's see how many people would have it. Would the majority, or would the majority not have it? So I'm interested in that. I'm actually very interested in that. I see a lot of people saying, Defender Marcia said, no record player. But let's see. Everyone's getting vinyl these days. So it looks like a good amount of the people in the live chat have one, and some people don't. And let's see here. We've only got a few votes in. I'll be shocked if the yeses outweigh the nos.
And also, by the way, I asked the question, would you be interested in a vinyl copy? Because even though some people don't have the record player, I know some people out there would want it simply as a collectible, even if they couldn't play it, just for like to have the cover art and all that stuff like that. Because we'd have to design like a full-on cover art for the actual cover for the vinyl record, because that's all part of it. So it could just be a collectible.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm trying to see here. So it actually is a lot more than I was thinking. And right now it's around 45%. Although that number does appear to be declining a little bit, bit by bit. But that is still interesting. 45% of y'all would want it. And while the majority do not, that's still enough people that we could consider doing something like that. However, with vinyl records, from what I was seeing online, we would have to do pre-orders and then go and make them because it's not something that can be made on demand. It has to be made in a batch. So we would have to do pre-orders and then get them and then ship them out. So that would be pretty cool to do. Because actually now the no's are outweighing the yeses by a good bit. It's like a 20% margin there. So maybe we might do that. If anything, we might do digital copies, or we may do fundraisers just for the next one. But we've never done a fundraiser for anything like that, so honestly I would kind of be adverse to that. So I don't really know how we do it, but we'll see. But still, with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Made in Canada 182, and I hope that does address that the best I can, because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't have been able to be around long enough to be able to finally make our own version of a song. And not only that, it is owned, the copyright is owned by me, but I'm generally leaving the enforcement of that up to Enforcer Media, which is the legal entity that this channel exists under. So with that, I hope that does address that the best we can. Thank you so much once again for support, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat here goes to Cliff H, who's also a longtime channel viewer and puts in a $22 donation. And thank you very much, Cliff, for that support. And he said, a tip of the LSA cap to Miss Disa, who through a diligent effort provides interesting context to the Russian losses on a regular basis, and just one of our outstanding LSA members. And thank you, and LSA.
And thank you so much for the support and the kind words, Cliff H, because Miss Disa, the keeper of the records, is a pretty considerable legend when it comes to the Russian casualty reports, always putting in some interesting info on the side about what the casualty reports mean, the averages, and also if anything's above average or exceptional. It is really cool to see that, and we always appreciate Miss Disa's efforts in that category. Truly an upstanding citizen of this republic. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to, guess who? John Garner once again. He puts into his second support of the night and puts in a 20. And thank you very much, John, once again. And he says, hello to the LSA.
And hello to the LSA, and thank you so much once again for the support, John Garner, and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it was not for folks like you, John Garner, we would not be able to make this thing possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Upped Zulu, or Upped Zulu, who puts in a $20 donation, and huge shout out to you for that support. I'm not sure if that is your first ever support or not, but huge shout out for that support indeed. They said, I agree that Russia is ready to use nukes, and I do not think the time is now, maybe within the next 5 years, and I do believe it's likely maybe then, and I think other things have to happen first, and I've said it for 10 years, it's close to that time.
And I thank you for the support, Up Zulu, and that is your first super chat ever. Hey, thank you so much for the massive support, by the way, for your first time ever. And also, let's see, I do not think the time is now within the next 5 years. That's interesting. I generally believe that nuclear war is not ever going to happen, to be entirely honest, because while it looks like they're ramping up right now, from what we understand, the current actions that are leading to what appears to be escalations by both sides are being done in conjunction in between the current president and the president-elect in a action to move Ukraine towards a better negotiating position through a concept of peace through strength. So that's what we're largely understanding at the moment. So at some point, there is going to be a time when both sides start backing off and they get down to the negotiating table and iron out some terms. And that's what I'm generally thinking at the moment. I generally am never a big believer in nuclear war happening, because it's something that always looks like it's on the verge of happening, but never will happen, because everyone knows the consequences of what that would mean. It means that 2/3 of everyone living in the northern hemisphere will be dead by the time the dust settles. And that's something that generally no one will want, because a lot of people will know that society exists in a very fragile framework, and a lot of people dying can really throw that off. You can see that really at any point in history. Like, for example, Soviet culture was completely thrown off from the unbelievable casualties they took in World War II. That threw them off forever. Well, at least culturally, that is. Another thing that has to be remembered is that if 2/3 of everyone is dead by the time of a nuclear exchange, there is no more economy, there is no more stock market. The folks who have a lot invested into it, like Putin, have lost everything if they somehow survive. They may as well live like paupers the rest of their life in some sort of a hut somewhere, just eating whatever they can find. Life would be hell. And that's what a lot of people understand if they even lived. And you're betting against the odds there because most people would end up dying. And that's generally why most people will not conduct a nuclear war. A lot of people also have this weird belief that there is some sort of like a secret elite that wants everyone dead, but like those theories are just stupid and asinine, being entirely honest. Like, not to be frank about that, but really needs to be frank about something like that, because it's absolutely stupid. Because the people who are wealthy because people work and make them money. And if pretty much everyone that you used to count on to work to make you money, and the entire economic and societal system that kept you wealthy is dead now, doesn't really make you a lot of money or really benefit one that much. I don't know if that's just because in the James Bond movies, the ultra wealthy guy would sit in the Alps and try and freeze the ice caps to melt everyone in the sea and drown them or something like that. I don't know if that's where people get these theories from or something like that, but it doesn't really make that much sense. I generally do believe, though, that we are always close to nuclear war. I would agree with you on that. But as far as an actual nuclear conflict happening and people getting killed en masse in it, I don't think that ever really will happen, because people understand what that means and will back off before it actually makes it to that final step. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it was not for folks like you, we would not be able to make this thing possible and keep this thing rolling. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to John Bernard, who puts in a 20, and huge shout out to John as well for throwing in that generous support. And he says IRBMs travel into space as they follow a ballistic trajectory that includes a mid-course phase where they coast through space after the initial boost phase before re-entering the atmosphere, at least according to Google AI.
And I thank you for the support and helping the channel to keep on running, and that is true. That's actually a low Earth orbit that those intercontinental ballistic missiles would be in during that mid-course phase. And let me make sure to get that right here from you, John Bernard. That is true. The thing is, though, is that with an intermediate range ballistic missile, they actually can be intercepted along most of their track. At least right towards the latter end of their mid-course phase and their terminal phase, they could be intercepted and shot down. The reason why I'm saying that is because the Patriot has shown in the past that it is capable of shooting down a Zircon being a hypersonic missile capable of around Mach 5 in its terminal phase, and for that reason, an intermediate range ballistic missile also gets to similar speeds, because the Zircon and the RS-26 both end up having just about the exact same top speed during its post-boost phase and the very beginning of its mid-course. So with that in mind, it is entirely possible that an Aegis ashore could end up shooting those things down, which is pretty interesting. And I also thank you for sharing that information on top of that as well. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best we can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Daniel Turnell, who puts in a 20. And huge shout out to Daniel as well. He said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get muted. And also, by the way, that must have been Nightbot that did that, so I'm not really sure what that was about. But sorry you got muted, by the way. I don't control Nightbot. It's its own little thing, and it gets wild sometimes. But Daniel says, I was just stoked, and too stoked maybe, and my bad. I support America, Ukraine, and the LSA, and I watch every stream and every short.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, Daniel Turnell. And I think I know what happened there, because you said you were really excited. You probably put in a lot of emojis or a lot of capitals. And if you did that, that makes the Nightbot automatically remove the comment and time someone out for a short while. We sadly are not in control of Nightbot where we can get into the minute details, because usually when someone comes in and says something in all caps or puts in a lot of emojis, they're either spamming or they're like insane, or one or the other. So it doesn't sadly discern those people from really excited people like you that are that are really hyped up. And I'm sorry that happened, because sadly we don't get to control a Nightbot and really fine tune it like that. I wish we could, though. though, because it would really clear up some of the anger that a lot of people have towards the Nightbot. But I still thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And it is great to hear that you are an upstanding patriot of this country and love to see the patriotism in the intro. We are nowadays going for like max patriotism in the intro, which is really what we've been wanting to go for the whole time. But I feel like we've been able to do it incredibly well with the new addition to the intro. And so with that, a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that Desert Dress said incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to the Asset 150, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, the Asset, for that support. They said, after watching Piers Morgan earlier with several influencers on it, I felt you guys would have been awesome guests. And do you think the no camera anonymity approach handicaps your channel in some aspects? And thank you, and LSA. And also, real quick, the Asset. Me personally, first of all, thank you for the kind words to say that we would be good guests on there. For just me personally, I don't know how the enforcer feels. I would personally not want to be on the Piers Morgan show, not because I have something against Piers Morgan personally, but I just don't feel like that show format is really designed to get at the truth or start really having a serious discussion about things. It's more of like for entertainment's sake, and I just don't want to get involved and mixed up in all of that because it turns into drama and fights, and there's no point in getting into that if you're not going to discuss things on a more like, I guess you could say, civil level, in my opinion. But that's just me. If you like the show, that's perfectly fine. But also, I don't think personally the anonymity approach, but for example, us not showing our faces on the stream, I think it actually helps out with just keeping the focus on the news instead of the focus on us, which is something we've always been very keen on, is to make sure that we're not making the focus about us, we're making it about the stream. So once again, thank you for support though. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, thank you so much for the support. Very good questions, by the way. One, I'd have to agree with Matthew. I don't really want to be on the Piers Morgan show. Unlike Matthew, who was saying that diplomatically, I'm going to say it a little bit more frank. I'm not really a big fan of Piers Morgan, and I've never really liked his style. It's not at all about news. It's more about sensationalism and really, well, let's see, what would be a good word for it beyond sensationalism? It's really
rage baiting.
Yeah, it's really rage baiting. It's really lame, to be honest. I don't really like it because he used to do that because I remember this back in the day. He would come into America, you know, being British, and like, you know, the British in the United States are similar in a lot of ways, different in others, but he would come over here and he would pretty much be like, I'm British and I'm going to tell you what to do. And he would just do that to try and get people pissed off. Like, that was his whole thing, was just rage baiting people and pissing them off. The best thing I can describe him as is a Fleet Street tabloid artist from the United Kingdom that just travels around making his living being a rage baiter. And I'm not really a big fan of going on to rage baiting shows, or really any shows for that matter. Like, if we went on a show, it would have to be a very, very good one. And that's why we generally do not go on other shows. Like, if we were even invited, we would most likely turn it down. Because I don't really consider that the kind of caliber or quality of a show that I would want to be on. And there's another guy, and I know why you're over there, because there was another guy on there. And from what I've heard, this guy ends up being used as the punching bag, and on top of that, the dude is terrible at defending himself from anything. Like, you know, he doesn't even really make a good argument for what he stands for. And you know, that is what it is. And so I would generally say, not really a big fan of getting on Piers Morgan. I do thank you though a great deal for saying that we would be a good fit for that show and thinking that we'd be a great guest. But I genuinely feel like I don't really want to go on to shows just because people ask. Because the honest truth is that there are a lot of shows out there that really, in my opinion, would cheapen the image of what we do. And Piers Morgan's show is certainly one of those. Because with what we do right now, we get on air, and yes, we do joke around, and we laugh, and we treat it as a very casual, non-serious thing. But that is a deliberate thing by us. We do that openly because that's what we want people to feel. We want people to joke around about it, to make light of it, and while it's a really tough situation, to still find a bit of a silver lining in it and get their news but not feel like the world's caving in on them. That's how we run this show. But at the exact same time, if we get invited onto someone else's show, either it's all emotional with nothing but filler and no real value, no real analysis underlying anything, or we go onto a show like Piers Morgan where it's just all about rage baiting, and that doesn't really interact with us well. And on top of that, it really cheapens what we do, because a lot of y'all know us for really good analysis, and then we go onto a show where it's all about emotional arguments and filler talk, and there's no real good analysis, and there's not really a good way for us to jive like we do. I guess the best way to do it, and kind of joke around like we always have. It would pretty much be impossible on most other shows, and so that's kind of why we're not really a big fan of going onto a show like that, or really going on to CNN or Fox, because you know, like if we ever got invited, by the way, I just want to make this clear, we've never been invited on CNN or Fox, but we do know that some of their people do watch, and some of these people are actually nice people. I want to make that clear. Like, I'm not like, you know, I don't have like a personal vendetta against everyone who works at CNN or Fox. Some of them are pretty nice people, but at the same time, though, the actual hosts, I just feel like a lot of them these days are really lackluster in their job, and also the actual end product that a lot of these organizations deliver is horrendous. It's terrible. Like, it doesn't really get to any kind of value. It doesn't get to any meaning. When you look at Fox and CNN, you never hear analysis. Like, you'll never hear analysis like you'll hear on our channel, where we talk about the number of missiles that were launched, the exact buildings that they hit, the possible implications, what the buildings were used for. Like in Marino, y'all don't get any of that on CNN or Fox. You'll just hear the melancholy streets are filled with the sound of gunfire. The truth is coming in fast, and it's over very soon. You know, and it's like I'm not really here for that. Like, I don't like that kind of stuff, and I also don't like, you know, going like I was kidding around about. You know, you go on CNN and just picking out one of the anchors, because this is the one we saw the other day for like an hour. You sit around Erin Burnett. You were on for like 5 minutes, which is not enough time to explain squat. You get asked a question that's very generic. Then she goes to looking at something and not even giving the time of day to what you're saying. It's literally just to fill up airspace. Another person's asked a question. They probably disagree with you. There's no time to rebuttal that or really explore that, and then they go to an ad break, and that's the end of your segment. Or if you go on to Fox News, and it's like the same thing. You're asked a question, you hardly get to explore it, you hardly get to explain it. They might throw a gotcha at you, which will be a pretty lame gotcha, and you know, and it's just to make you look like the villain, like, you know, like, or something like that. And then one of the
an example of a Fox News question, for example, if the enforcer was brought on there, they would bring him on and be like, "Hi, enforcer, how are you?" And he'd be like, "Oh, I'm doing great." They'd be like, "Okay, so the war in Ukraine's going great and stuff like that, but why do you want us to all die in a hellfire to support Ukraine?" It's like, oh, whoa. It's like, okay, it's just an ambush question. That's all Fox News ever does, is just ambush questions. Like, out of all of them, honestly, like, all the mainstream kind of sucks, if we're being perfectly honest here, but Fox is like extra bad. I can't even like stomach Fox for like any 30 seconds anymore.
But also, I want to do this, Matthew. Let me really quickly do. I think because I know two anchors really well on both of those platforms. Like, not personally, but from seeing their segment, and I can imitate them pretty well. Erin Burnett for CNN, and then Sean Hannity for Fox. And really quickly, Matthew, allow me, like, let's just go through this and like, let's do a Sean Hannity segment really quickly. I'm going to be Sean Hannity. You're going to be you. All right, so welcome back, everyone. It's Sean Hannity here on the Fox News Special, and we have Enforcer Matt over here that's with us. And Enforcer Matt, I've heard that you've been talking a lot about the Ukraine war. What would you like to tell us a little bit about it?
Bro, I saw you smoking a vape pen right before you went to commercial break, and you
absolutely
snatched it out of your mouth.
great.
Like, I saw that. Myself. Oh, wait a minute.
Incredible.
Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. I saw the vape pen.
I was hang on. Hold up. I'm trying to plug my book here. I actually wrote a new book. And then he'll like
That's
go
right.
into
Your 50th book.
Yeah, and so then he'll go into his book, and then he'll go, all right, thank you very much for your time, Matthew, and we're going to be going to a commercial break, and we'll see y'all right after the break. And then the break would come, and then Matthew's off air, and there was nothing of substance done. And it's like, you know, it's like, do I or even we want to be on a show like that? No. Like if we were on a show, it's like if they wanted to give us an entire hour where we could talk about it, maybe. But even still, it's like I wouldn't really be that big of a fan. You know, they would really have to like lay out what exactly is going to happen beforehand, because also I don't want to go onto a show so that way I can be their next ambush. You know, because that's what happens to a lot of people. Like this one guy that at this point it's just clownish, who is pretty much the punching bag on Piers Morgan's channel, what you're probably talking about. It's like, why do that? It's like he doesn't look good every time he does it. You know, I mean, me personally, just to let you know, I'm kind of biased against the guy who's going on to Piers Morgan's show. But he doesn't look good every single time he goes on that show because he doesn't make any good points, and he just ends up being Piers Morgan's punching bag. And I'll be honest, Piers Morgan has a lot more experience punching someone than this other guy has defending himself. So he always ends up looking terribly, and he gets nothing out of it rather than looking like a joke. So it's like, you know, why in the world would anyone want to go on a show like that? I wouldn't know. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Not to like shoot that down and then bury it, but I hope that does answer that fairly well. And also your second point, are we handicapped by not showing our face? Maybe, at least in like getting our face out there, but it's not really about our face. And this is always the way I've looked at it. It's not really about getting our face out there, which a lot of people try and do for the vanity side of things. So that way people will know who they are. We're not really all about that. Our face has been shown several times on this channel. And if you look, you'll be able to find them. But I'm not really a big fan of showing our faces because it really starts to detract from what we're covering as news, and it almost turns it into like one of those old mid-2010s reaction channels where it's more about the person covering the news than it is the news itself. And while a lot of y'all know us as, you know, really funny personalities or really entertaining or really interesting, which a lot of y'all say, I still don't want the focus to go entirely onto us and then just have us sitting in a little camera in the corner, because then y'all might be focusing on us more so than the actual content that we're covering. And so that's kind of our take on those things. I personally think it's actually a contribution that we don't show our face, because the honest truth is that we're a lot more successful than other people who show their faces, and that may be because people are focusing more on them than they are the news, and here on this channel, we just focus entirely on the news itself and not us as people. And so with that...
Nothing like a little mystery, like to make people really intrigued by it. Like, y'all hear our voices, but you'll have no clue what our age is because you don't get to see our faces on a regular basis. You just hear, it sounds like two 50-year-olds talking at the same time almost. Like, we don't sound our age, which is, I think, honestly, kind of a good thing. Because I wonder if people could see us on a regular basis, would they discount our analysis on things just because of our age? I have a feeling it could have an impact.
Yeah, also, that's another thing. Like, no one knows our age until we say it. And this is a really goofy thing. Like, the world, like, people always say that there are certain kinds of prejudice that exists in the world, and I personally say, you know, it's always unfortunate. We deal with the prejudice of a sort. I'll explain that in a second. It's always unfortunate, but you never really can get rid of it, regardless of what kind of prejudice it is. But we deal with a great deal of prejudice in this category from other people who are in it, because we're not 40 or 30 or, well, in our late 30s or 40s or 50s. We're just, you know, in our 20s and our early 20s. I'm 22 and Matthew's 24. I'm soon to be 23. But beyond that, though, because we are so young, usually a lot of people just like to take shots at us because they say we're young. And so we can say good points and we can get out good ideas, but we get completely shot down because, oh, they're just young, so discredit everything they say, which is really stupid to me, because it's like, you know, I honestly think we make a lot of good points. Most of the time, you know, we make better points than most people who are doing this in their 30s and 40s who don't have a damn clue what they're doing. They're just doing it to get AdSense money. And it's like, that's really stupid to discredit us, because it's like, we usually have good points. Like yesterday, like, you know, just not to like toot the whistle here, but yesterday is an example. When Marino got hit, a lot of other people out there were going, ooh, you know, welcome back. You know, they hit it and it was a really big boom. Oh, wow, Storm Shadow hit. Let me read you this article from the BBC. And like on this channel, we just went straight with the facts in the videos that we got, which was the only facts we had. We looked at the videos, and then we extrapolated from all of that. This must be a command post because they hit it with 10 Storm Shadows. It was a high priority target. It's not on a major roadway, and the buildings are not conducive enough to house supplies. And it also isn't a barracks, so it has to be a command post. And we got it dead on the money. Like, the analysis was spot on right there. And, you know, and generally, if we were trying to, you know, vie with other people in the category who were like 40 years old or something, that are honestly too stupid to extrapolate stuff for themselves, they would go, oh, that's just the enforcer. He's 22 and he's young and inexperienced. He doesn't know what it is. So I'm just going to rip this news article that I found and not do any analysis of my own. And that's kind of something that we do run into a good bit. And I think if we showed our face, a lot of people would see that we are young, and then it adds into the just the beating down of us for being young and doing this. And it's always stupid to me too, like, not to harp on this for too long, but there's so many people, a lot of these people included, that are of a certain kind. Well, actually, this isn't even a thing of a certain kind of a leaning anymore. A lot of the people in the pro-Ukraine world are very political in a one certain direction. Not to say that that's a problem or anything, but they're political, and we generally are not a big fan of folks who are political in either direction. But a lot of them are, and really political people are always big fans of saying, oh, the youth ought to get out there, and the youth ought to lead this country forward, and they ought to be the future. And then when the youth, I guess we would be considered that, considering we're in our early 20s, when the youth like us steps forward and we start doing things like actually learning about our nation, learning about our standing in the world, learning about strategic implications, diplomatic interactions, stuff like that. And we get out here and we actually work a job, and we work it well, doing this stuff and analyzing it and covering the news. And then all these same people who want the youth to step forward and really lead the charge, they want to start shitting on the youth because the youth is doing a better job than them, and they feel jealous or what, or they just don't like the youth. Something like that. And so that's kind of the run of the mill there that I can give. Not to say that everyone dislikes us. There's a lot of people who do like the channel. Civdiv is one. Big shout out to Civdiv. He watches the channel pretty regularly from what we've been told. Keemstar watches. Loads of people watch. Like David Petraeus watches the show. Jan Lipovsky. There's loads of people who do. But at least in the pro-Ukraine category, I don't know what it is, but we've always just gotten flack, and I guess it's just because we're young, and for that reason, since we're the only people in the category who are young who do this, everyone else wants to just take a massive dump on us whenever they get the chance, or treat us like we're not serious, although I've never seen
They're
any of
mad
them
because
do
we're swinging
animals.
above our weight, man. We're swinging above our weight. We got 311,000 subscribers, and some of them have been doing it for, actually before the Ukraine war started, and they were struggling to even get to this point, and some of them have been put in the dust, basically. Not to, toot our own horn, we're not big on doing that whatsoever. But for example, like Hot Dog Man, for example, he started out trying to have really good relations with the channel, and then once he realized they're going a lot faster and progressing quicker than I ever have, and they're not letting me on their show as I'm being basically a jackass to them. That's when he went really haywire and started harassing the hell out of us because apparently he got jealous. So, it happens. But it's weird, though. Out of all the segments on YouTube, the one that we're a part of, the pro-Ukraine segment, the other YouTubers have given us the most flack of anybody. We get along with other YouTubers, across the board. We have people in here that are musicians on YouTube that have a lot of followers, as well as some drama YouTubers as well, oddly enough. So it's really just the Ukraine segment that really is, really hostile toward us. I wonder if it's just jealousy.
I don't know, because I'll be entirely honest, that is kind of like our experience, because a while ago, this was something interesting as well, because we don't really have a lot of experience with other YouTubers outside of the Ukraine war category. For a while, our only impression of other YouTubers is that every other YouTuber must be an asshole, because pretty much every Ukraine war YouTuber behind the scenes is one. And I'm never going to mince words with that. Someone can once again clip this part of the stream and put it out of context and then just show it to their fans and have them brigade another stream. I don't care, because that is entirely true. A lot of these people are assholes behind the scenes because we've dealt with them, or we've had some limited dealings with them. And so for a while, after we just dealt with them only, we were like, everyone on YouTube must be an asshole behind the scenes. But then so many other YouTubers from different categories started to say hello and say, we watch the channel and we enjoy it, and they're nice people. And I'm like, I don't know what it is. I guess it literally just is that maybe they're jealous of us, or maybe they're all just assholes for some reason. Maybe this category just gravitates towards buttheads. I don't know. It's a really weird phenomenon, though, because we literally get along with anyone else but anyone in the Ukraine war category. It makes no sense at all when you think about it, except for Civdiv. Civdiv is a real one. Civdiv is a G. He's in the Ukraine war category, and he likes the channel, and I got to give a big shout out to Civdiv. He's a real one. But beyond that, I hope that does address that fairly well, or it just kind of talks about that a little bit, because it's the most bizarre thing. And whenever anyone asks about does not showing your face hinder anything, maybe, but I generally think that would still go back to our youth, which a lot of people equate to inexperience or a complete lack of knowledge. And I don't know, maybe when they were in their 20s, they were stupid, but I feel like I'm generally not, at least in this one category. Ask me to cook something, you might get food poisoning. But if you ask me anything about history or anything to do with war or diplomacy, I'll know a pretty good bit. And, it might not all be correct, and I might be wrong here and there, but it generally is pretty good. And so with that, I hope that does
Let
address
me
that.
cook.
Let him cook. Don't let me cook. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. But a huge thanks once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running.
All right, and moving on here to our next super chat question. This one goes to Just Chillin', who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, Just Chillin', for the very generous support. And also, of course, you are a long-time channel legend. And Just Chillin' said, I'm grateful for the work that you guys put into this channel, and your dedication to keeping us informed with facts is unparalleled. And thank you for that, by the way. They said, long live the LSA.
And long live the Lee Spring Army. And thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it was not for folks like you, we would not be able to keep this channel running and make this thing possible. And I got to give you a huge amount of thanks and support for doing this and helping us to make this thing possible. Because if it was not for folks like you, we would never have been able to make this thing possible in the first place. And so with that, a massive thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never die.
All right. And also, I see some people saying, oh, well, you know, people are just surprised because most of your generation is a little bit off a little bit. And, you know, it's like, honestly, I'll say this. I'm not trying to like put other people down in our generation or something like that. But
I can see it.
Listen, I can see it. I can see it because I've grown up with our peers and in our age bracket and stuff like that. And I'm not saying like I'm smarter than any of them. Like there are smart people in our age bracket, but just the way they behave is a little bit weird these days. I'm not sure what has gone wrong with our current generation that me and Andrew are a part of, but it's certainly not like it used to be, if that makes any sense.
I'll say this though, Matthew. I have a pretty good. I think I have a pretty good grasp on what is wrong. A lot of our generation is the first one to grow up with social media as they were growing in school, and so a lot of these kids would fall into the gimmicks that are on social media. One of them, we've had personal experience with this one recently, and so this one's the kind of one that I have the most bias against, but it's the whole alpha male Chad thing, like the Andrew Tate kind of stuff, because if you ever listen to a Romanian pimp for advice on how to be a man, I have to just say that's probably not good advice on how to be a man, because a pimp is generally not an upstanding member of society or an upstanding citizen of the republic, for one. That seems like a pretty basic knowledge thing to understand. And two, and because we dealt with this recently, we tried to be friends with some folks we knew. They seem nice on the surface, but then you would start to see that they would do things that were really stupid. Like they would agree to like they can never just do anything spontaneously when they were free. You know, like you'd be like, hey, we're free right now, because, you know, every once in a while we do have some free time. And considering that they were some of the few people we knew, we were like, well, let's see if they want to do something. We'd be like, hey, you want to do something? And they would be like, oh yeah, you know, sure, in a week at this specific time. And, you know, it's always weird when that would happen, because we were like, they're never just like free for anything spontaneous at all, like over a whole year of knowing them. But anyways, you would wait for that time, and then they would always be late. And at first that didn't mean anything, but after a while we were like, we think they're deliberately being late just for the fact to make us wait. Not to make that rhyme, but we were like, that's got to be the case. And then they would do other goofy things, like it was just nothing but goofy things. And then we finally found out, they finally told us that they were big fans of like Andrew Tate and people like that. And then we were like, this makes sense, because this is literally the stuff that they say to do to people. And it's like, that's just not stuff to do to people. That's just rude and being an asshole. And it's like, that's not the way you're supposed to treat other people. But people fall into those gimmicks, or they fall into other gimmicks of how to act. Like there's no such thing anymore as growing up, at least in our generation, with a standard role model. Like it's just extremes. Like, you know, you have people like Liver King who tell you, like, you know, eat blow balls and drink milk with them, and, you know, you'll be like strong like me, although the guy's roided up. Or, you know, you got Andrew Tate, who's a Romanian pimp, who's telling you how to be a man, and it's just like the most scummy way to live possible, you know. And you just don't have like any good role models. But our generation was never told different, so a lot of them just listened to these people and took it at face value, because, you know, this guy is swole, or this guy's got a Bugatti, so he must know what's up. And it's just like, that's not the case. You know, and then there's a whole bunch of other things. Like I'm kind of like dissing on the alpha male thing, but there's a lot of other categories out there that I also just do not get. at all. Like I could break down every single social media fad there is right now and say why they don't make sense in my opinion and why that's not a good way to live. And then a lot of people find that out and then they eventually just, fade away from it. And then they know it's not good, but then, the next group of kids that's seeing this stuff, they're getting suckered in thinking that it's something good, and then they go down the same track and then they get socialized or grow up to think that that's the right way to do things. And it's just not. And
They get social medialized.
yeah, that's really it. And it's horrendous, to be entirely honest. I think that's what the main problem is. Because like when you tell like a kid, like just to kind of talk about the alpha male stuff again, when you tell a kid that's growing up, because a lot of the people who are into that whole alpha male thing are like, teens, like teen males really, because I remember that was starting to become a thing when I was in high school and getting out of it, but you would hear something like, oh, like, why in the world do you need to pay attention in school when you could be like me and you could just have a whole bunch of women that you pimp out? And it's like, is that like the and then like dudes in school towards the end of it would start gravitating towards that. And it's like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, this guy's just telling you to be a pimp. And then the guy moved on to something new now. He's like some sort of like a ultra traditional guy, and it's like you're a pimp, dude. Like, there's no way to make that work. You can't sell it, but he sells it to other people. But like, if you look at that logically with any brains in your mind, you would know that that doesn't make any sense. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well, because Matthew is right. He just texted me, he's like, we're starting to linger too long, we got to move on. But I hope that does address that fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so moving on to our next one here. Guess what? It's another super chat from Just Chillin', and it threw in another $50 donation for a total of $100 of support. And thank you very much, Just Chillin', for the very generous support tonight. And he said, take one from the chat. And we shall take one from the chat. And thank you very much once again. And this one, and sponsored by Just Chillin', is going to go to Blue Voyager, who said, Matt, do you guys think that Russia might actually attack Britain?
Not really. Well, I have to say I'm a little indecisive at the moment. Their statement was very clear today what they would do, but that could all just be talk once again, because attacking the UK isn't just attacking the UK, that's attacking NATO. That's an Article 5 provocation right there. So, part of me says no, because it would make no sense, but once again, the Russians do a lot of things that don't make sense, so I can't rule it out. But the logical side of me is saying absolutely not. And the other side of me that knows that the Russians just do stupid things says that might happen, but might. I'm generally leaning towards most likely not. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Leora Avagao, who's a channel legend as well. I feel like I'm saying now literally everybody tonight. It seems like a bunch of channel legends are throwing in support. And Leora puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much once again for that support. And Leora says, I think the more desperate Putin gets, the more closer he could do something pretty crazy. And when you are losing a chess game and you start weighing your options very carefully, never underestimate the madmen.
And I gotta thank you for the support, and that is somewhat true. I would believe that, and I do think that Putin is getting closer and closer to actually snapping and possibly using a nuclear weapon. But I still feel like we're not exactly there yet. Based off everything that we were talking about earlier, it looks like he's still trying to create. He's actually constructing more remaining escalatory steps to take, showing that he has not been pushed to the final brink, at least at the moment. So I'd agree with you on that, but I still think that we're not there exactly yet, but we do need to get a little bit more cautious. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Trister1 once again, who puts in a $20 donation. And once again, a huge shout to you, Trister, for the second support of the night. He says, I-B-I-D. I guess that's I bid farewell, Abadu, Abadu.
Adieu, you mean? Not Abadu? I've never, dude. Oh, I bid you farewell, Abadu.
Abadu?
Man, Abadu. But I do thank you so much for the support.
Man, it is Adu. I don't know why I said Abadu.
Yeah, you said Abadu.
I just sit there and relish in the cringe for a minute, but no, it's Adu.
Farewell and Abadu.
Damn.
But still, thank you so much for the support, Trister1, and putting in a bid. Because I guess he's bidden. Trister said I bid.
Oh, no, go right ahead. Nothing. I'm just reeling in it. Just go right ahead.
Someone said yabba dabba doo.
Oh, that's bad. That's so bad.
I bid you abadoo yabba dabba doo.
Oh my god.
Dude, that was a pretty good one. I'm not gonna lie. Now you're gonna be coughing for the rest of the night, though. But still, with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Tristan One. And with that, we're moving on to the next super chat. But before we do, I bid you abadoo, yabba dabba
Abadoo. I tell you what, yabba dabba doo. But anyways, moving on here to our next super chat. This one goes to Evanescent Wave, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Evanescent Wave, for the very generous support. They said Putin is repeatedly baiting NATO to an act that would give him a strong case to claim that NATO is invading Russia, and I suspect that he would like an excuse to institute a general mobilization. And what are your thoughts?
That could also be the case as well, but generally we're seeing that Putin is not conducting a general mobilization. Because if you wanted to, they're kind of there, at least inside of Russia, on their narrative where they could justify that to the public and they probably wouldn't rise up against it too much. But they're still not. And I believe that's generally showing that they just know that there's not really that much more manpower to scrape from the barrel if they did that. So there really isn't any point for it. And so I would have to say, though, that's still not out of the question. Maybe that's why they're doing this, and that's maybe why they're trying to start escalating things farther and farther at this point. So with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Mr. Obsolation, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Mr. Obsolation, for the support. That's sounding probably like what the landscape of Putin's mindset is right now, Mr. Obsolation. But they put in the 20, and thank you very much. They said, I just wanted to show some love, and great work, boys.
And hey, thank you so much for the support, and thank you for enjoying the great work. We work hard on this thing, and it's always because we know that y'all will be very proud and happy of the end result. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one here goes to Aztecian, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Aztecian, for that $10 support. They said to Nutsack Sr., a.k.a. Putin, Guzlik Valagan and Adolchen Vos, the Aztecian shall rain hamsters and a Wonderwaffle on your house.
Dang. That's deep. But I do think you're
bringing out the Horton Ho for this one.
Chris's mom. It's just like they're whipping it out.
Whoa,
it's the Horton Ho. Man, that's Horton's Ho, by the way. That's not the Horton Ho. That's Horton's Ho. But beyond that, I do
Horton,
think...
here's the Ho.
Horton, here's the Ho. The implications behind that one, man, they're not good.
What?
Horton, here's the hoe? How the hell do you hear a hoe?
No, it's like that, like the Dr. Seuss thing, like Horton, what was the thing? It's Horton,
Horton hears a who, but
Horton hears a who, that's right.
But thinking about that literally, though, Horton hears a hoe. Dude, how do you hear the hoe? What noise are they making?
Ho, ho. It's just Santa.
What, the hoe is Santa?
No, he says ho, ho, ho. He's not a hoe.
Bro, Horton's rolling up on that empty city block. Santa's out there going, I'll do a lot for $50. Oh, ho, ho. It's like, oh, no.
That's Hot Dog Man in disguise as Santa.
Oh, man, I'd cook a glizzy for $50. Oh, man. But still, thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I forgot what the super chat even was, man. Can you reread it?
Yeah, they said to Nutsack Senior, aka Putin, Guzlik Valakiman and Adolchen Vos, the Aztecian shall rain hamsters and Wonderwaffe on your house.
And I thank you for the support. That was a pretty good super chat. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here goes to AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, AMX10, for the support. They said, I think Crimea will be returned by military force, and there will be nothing that Russia can do about it. And snip goes the Kerch Bridge, and snip goes the Southern Land Bridge, and run go the Russians.
And I thank you for the support. That is a nice thought. However, Zelensky is saying at this point that that's no longer possible, and they'll have to regain it through diplomatic means. And if he's saying that, that's kind of the law at this point, because he would know if anyone would, if it would be possible for them to retake that or not. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support, and I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Also, I see Matthew's now even saying the delirium's hitting hard. No, actually, Matthew, for some reason, Horton hears a hoe just hit differently tonight. And I was like I started thinking about that, and I was like, what noise would a hoe make for you to hear that? Like, and that's what made me start laughing.
Damn, that just sounded so crude when you said it like that. It just came across very crude.
Well, that's why I was laughing at it too, because I was thinking of like the implication. I was like, dang, man. I was like, he just said that. I was like, crazy. And that's why I kept on asking. I was like, what noise does a ho make? And then you're like, I don't know, man. Like, ho, 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 it's Santa. And then I was like, wait a minute, Santa's the ho? I was like, that's why it was funny. But still, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Estetian once again, who puts in a 10 and says the other Wunderwaffe is let me start over. The other Wunderwaffe for Putin is this: your hairline shall recede further than Kursk.
Oh, I think honestly it has. Like, let's go look at him. He's bald, isn't he? Let's see. Yeah, dude, he was looking rough today, honestly, man. This looks like a damn Madame Tussauds figure right here. But
have you seen the picture that I put up on Twitter, by the way, showing day 1 of the SVO versus day 1000? It's quite a sight.
It is quite a sight. I saw it. Let's show it to all of them, though. Let's see here. Where is it? There we go. Look at him, looking all spry and young. Look at that. He's looking all young. Now he looks all worn out and exhausted and delirious.
Oh, jeez. Man, it doesn't even look like the same person. Like, obviously, the lighting's a little bit different. And also, notice he's wearing a black tie in the one here on the 1000th day, and he's wearing a red tie in the first one. I wonder if that signifies anything.
Dude, I'm telling you, man. He was sitting there on that first day, and, that little song in his head was playing. Like that little super wholesome song. He's like, we're going to invade Ukraine on the 1000th day. I've launched the IRBM in the Ukraine. Stop it. Like, it's like, dude, he went freaking mental, man, over like 1,000 days. And also, by the way, I just got to observe this, Matthew. He looks like he's getting no sleep anymore, man, with like the giant bags under his eyes, and also how sunken in his eyes are in his face, and all the wrinkles on his forehead. The way this war has been going has been stressing him out for the past 3 years.
Well, you got to imagine, even though that, obviously he's a madman, he's doing stuff that nobody with a sane mind would want to do because he's delving his country into really risky territory and also killing civilians off one by one. But the war's got to be extremely stressful for him because he's on the short end of the stick. He's right now invading a country which he didn't belong in. His men are getting slaughtered left and right, and they really don't have a strategy going forward. And also his military commanders keep getting knocked off one by the Ukrainians. He can't really replace them. Also, the economy is in a complete spiral, a complete turmoil, and he's having to rely on North Korea for support. So he's not exactly in a good spot, and his face kind of matches that.
Man, he looks like he looks like it's all over for him, honestly, at this point already. That's what he's looking like now, and I think that's why he's doing these desperate acts, is because he knows it's pretty much done for at this point. But still, with that, also, by the way, if you look at Zelensky, he just looks like kind of like more weathered, I guess, but like Putin looks like he's actually getting worn out at this point. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least the best I can for now. And thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Recursive FPV, who puts in a $10 donation, and thank you very much for that support indeed. And also, I think that might be their first ever super chat on the channel, so if it is, huge shout out to you. They said, if you watch the other videos, there are 6 warheads entering for each flash of light shown in the video, and you played, and also there were 6 flashes of light each, containing 6 warheads, meaning they fired 6 IRBMs. Nah, I don't think so. I think that was the MIRV. That was the multiple reentry vehicles. That was not actually 6 missiles being launched. It was simply the splitting of the one warhead, I believe.
I believe that is the case. And I do thank you for the support, though, and I will try and look into that a little bit more after stream. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Malice Gaming, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Malice Gaming. They said, do you think that the 800,000 NATO soldiers will mobilize to stabilize the Kursk collapse?
I have not heard of a Kursk collapse, to be entirely honest, at the moment. It sounds like the front lines are holding strong from what I last heard, so I would have to say no. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Peter Townsend, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Peter, for the support. And he says, earlier today, I was having major internet issues as well. And I'm from Canada and have fiber optics. Also, we have fiber optics, too. He said, never had an issue like it before and wasn't just happening to me in the game I was playing.
Interesting. I thank you for sharing that. Maybe there is a ongoing cyber attack going on. I'll have to check in with my close sources that would know and ask them so that way I can see if it is or isn't. But sadly, I'll have to do that after stream. But I still thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Kyle Padell, and he puts in a $10 donation, and thank you very much, Kyle, for that support. We appreciate it. He says, my dad passed away on 10/9/24, and also my condolences to you. He said, at the age of 70. He said, thanks for keeping him entertained with great news. Love Ukraine. And he was always preaching about the channel being amazing with knowledge. And also, that's very sad to hear, Kyle, first of all. And once again, my condolences to you. And that is wild. He was talking about how amazing the channel was, and that's really crazy. If you could tell us what was his username in the chat, I would really like to know that. And that's very sad to hear. And also, thank you very much for the kind words and also letting us know that. It means a lot. And Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta thank you for the support, Kyle Padell. I hate to hear that your father passed away a little while ago, actually. That's unfortunate to hear. But I am glad to hear that he got a lot of enjoyment out of this channel in his latter years. I hope that he was having a great time watching. And I thank you so much for giving us some thanks for helping him to pass the time. It must be a very sad thing, obviously, to lose one's father. That has to be very unfortunate. Luckily, we haven't had to deal with that yet on our side of things, but I still have to say that I'm very glad to know that we've been able to help someone pass the time and have a good time with things. And I got to thank you so much for sharing that with us, because we would love to know if he was in the live chat, what his account username was, so that way we can see if we ever got to look at his live chats directly while he was here. But I still thank you so much once again for support. And I don't think I've seen your name in the live chat much before, Kyle Padell, at least from memory. And I'm wondering, Kyle, are you watching this channel now because your father talked about it, or were you also watching it before he passed? Because if so, welcome, and very interesting to know that you're now watching it as well, and hopefully getting the same value out of it. Hopefully that's the case. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Cole Slaw. I like that. They put in a $5 donation. And they said, what new red lines do you think that Russia would have now that the long-range missiles are out and in use? And keep up the goodiest coverage. And I'm in love with it.
And thank you so much for the support and the kind words. I really don't know, because I feel like all the red lines have been crossed at this point, and there's not really a lot that we could do or provide to Ukraine rather than getting directly involved in the war. That really is the last red line, because we've given Ukraine about every single permission and every single ability to use any and every weaponry that we have in which way that they want. So at this point, I don't really think there's much more of any red line to cross rather than NATO getting directly involved in the conflict on the ground. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, I just saw Elka Cersei, who was the guy who said he had terminal cancer. Maybe it's that guy. It's not, because he was only here a few days ago. And Kyle's father passed away last month, if I'm reading the dates correctly. That I believe that was the American dating format, so it would have been October 9th, which was a little over a month ago. But we actually, interestingly enough, there's a lot of people who are battling cancer who watch this channel. And so usually just because someone has cancer or has terminal cancer, that doesn't mean that they're the same person, because we've actually had a lot of people who are battling cancer at different stages who watch this channel. And it's always great to know that we help them to pass the time while they're dealing with that stuff, because it's not fun to deal with at all from anyone I've heard about it from. And it's good to know that we're able to help them pass, hopefully, at least like with us putting out almost like 20-minute long videos and 3.5-hour streams, we're able to help them pass about 4 hours of the time each day watching this news that comes out every day. But I hope that does address that well, so that way folks know that a little bit. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Estetian once again and puts in a 5 and says, the world should know that I'm the great Estetian.
And thank you for the support, and I suppose that at least 6,111 people know at this point. But still, I thank you so much once again for the support, Estetian, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Trap Fargo, who puts in a 5 and says, 4 in the morning here in the UK, and the sun hasn't come out yet, and I can confirm we haven't been nuked. Oh, that's good.
Oh, that's good. Thank you for Thank you for the support and sharing that with us so that way we know that y'all aren't nuked. And I don't think y'all are going to be nuked. I don't really think much is going to be happening, honestly, in my head. But still, you can never be certain these days. Always have to be ready. Finland Light Railway? What is this? That is a light railway.
Oh, no. Is that a kid?
I think it is. You gotta
Okay, I was
respect.
about to say, like, that can be a grown man right there. I don't think that looks like a grown man.
Bro, they got the Union Pacific GP-38 out here.
That looks like
That's actually an SD-40.
yeah, that model right there looks like something that like, is it plastic?
Maybe. I can't really tell. But interesting. They actually gotten a lot of American stuff out here at this place. They got some British stuff that's I think like a class 47 or something like that. But
that guy looks like he is about to whip that train, like the way he's sitting in that cockpit right there, like he's about to floor that thing.
dude, he's about to drift that thing. Like mad respect to him though, man. He's got the posture down. But that little Union Pacific SD-40 was pictured a good bit. But it's highly detailed. You can even see the fuse cabinet back there in the back of the cab. That's pretty cool. But anyways, moving on from that, that was an interesting thing to see zooming in on the UK. But it is good to hear that y'all have not been nuked yet. And oh, look, Matthew, it's right next to the town named after apparently Chef Ramsay.
Oh, look at that. It's what's the name of it? Where do you see it?
Ramsay
Oh,
Mirror
Ramsay
Side.
Mirrorside. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see it.
I'm just kidding. It's not named after Ramsay. Ramsay was probably named after some place in Britain called Ramsay. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, the best I can at least. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Up Zulu once again, who puts in the second super chat of the night, and puts in a 5. And thank you once again, Up Zulu, for the support. They said, I love the work you guys do, and mainstream media is pretty much non-existent to me now, and I hope you guys got the 20 I sent as well. And we did, and thank you very much for that.
And thank you so much for the support, and thank you for the kind words. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running to pretty much slug it out with the mainstream news every day for good news coverage. Well, it's a pretty hand-down contest. We kind of win that every day. But beyond that, thank you so much for enjoying this channel. And also, we did get the 20. And thank you for enjoying the work greatly, Up Zulu. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one here goes to Stevie Augie in 1992, who puts in an 8 Australian. And thank you very much. And also, shout out to Australia as well. And Stevie says, I'm Versta. Glad me and my family are allowed the way in Western Australia, which would probably not be nuked.
And let's see. Let's see. Western Australia, most likely not actually. And let's see if that is a town.
Him and the Quokkas would be safe.
Probably so. And I don't see a town called Versta. But still, in Western Australia, y'all should be fine. Like, quite honestly, y'all. Really, everyone in the southern.
I think Versta was supposed to be very, but I think it was a typo.
Oh,
Well,
well.
that is a town name like Versta, Australia.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. Look, you fool me once, you can't fool me again. But anyway, said that, we are on to the next one.
And also, Stevie Augie confirmed it is supposed to be very. So
Oh.
he typed in Versta in Australia to find it. It was not there. But anyways, jumping into our next one here. This one goes to Joe Thornton, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Joe, for the $5 support. He said, World War II started with proxy wars, and World War I started with proxy wars. World War III has already been going on for over a year, and history will write this as World War III. And your thoughts?
And maybe so, maybe. But I never like to call them until they've happened. Like, if you called World War II before it was the World War, it would be a little bit preemptive. Like, history will say this was the beginning of World War III, maybe. I hope not, though, to be entirely honest. But it could end up being the case. So with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Octavian Temerasanu, who puts in a 5, and thank you very much for that support. He said they launched the IRBM at Dnipro because it would have been shot down if it was launched at Kyiv, and that would have been an embarrassment.
That may have been the case because the Patriot has shot down Zircons and Kinzels before, and I don't really think they have a Patriot at their disposal in Dnipro, so that may have been why there was a change in the target location. And so with that, thank you so much once again for your support. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Cody, who puts in a 5 and says he doesn't want to be king of the ashes. He wants to make sure that if he can't win, nobody does, and it's that simple, and he will go nuclear soon.
And I thank you for the support, and maybe that's the case, but I would hope that it would make it to the diplomatic negotiating table before nuclear weapons were launched. Not really a big fan of a nuclear conflict because it generally would go badly for everyone involved. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to the new IKB 4472, puts in a 5 and says, "We in the UK have the letters of last resort, and we might not win, but Russia will lose."
And I thank you for the support, and that is true, actually. Y'all do have the letters of last resort. Do you know what those are, Matthew?
That is, no, I actually don't.
They're little letters that are put inside of every British strategic missile-carrying submarine. And if the United Kingdom was to be destroyed in a preemptive nuclear strike that knocked out the government completely to where no one could transmit orders to the subs will go to this little safe in the sub. They will unlock the safe, and they will open the safe, and inside of each of those safes, on every single sub, is a letter written by the Prime Minister of the UK. So every time a new Prime Minister takes charge, they write these letters, and it tells the submarine crews what the orders of that Prime Minister is on what they should do if the UK has been completely wiped out in a nuclear attack. So at least hypothetically, they could say, strike the Russians back, or strike whoever attacked the United Kingdom back immediately, or it could say, do not strike and just return back to the UK. It could be any order that could be issued, and those submarine captains have to follow the order. But then at that point, it's like, there's no government around, so if they violate the order and fire their nukes anyways, who's going to get them? It's like, no one's going to be holding them accountable. So,
and also, isn't that a little insecure? Because can't they just go, like, unlock the box with the letter of last resort in it and start, using that as the order?
Well, they're only supposed to do that. I believe, like, the safe has to have, like, the first officer and the captain unlock it or something like, it's like the double redundancy sort of a thing, if I remember it correctly. So it's not like you can just go unlock it, and be like, oh, the orders are here, open fire, just start firing nukes. It would have to be something that, the entire, pretty much, senior command of the sub would be in on, and that probably wouldn't happen. But, I guess so, maybe. But then at the same time, though, on U.S. subs, they also have a safe that they just unlock with keys, and then they go get the nuclear launch codes and just read them back. And really, technically, on the sub, if the first officer and the captain agree, they could just start firing off nukes at any minute.
Interesting. That's fascinating. I thought they had to call in to like a central location. They have their launch codes, and then they tell the launch codes to the central location, and then they have to get some verification code back to actually be able to make them work. I thought that's the way it worked.
I'm not really sure, actually. We would have to look into that more. I might be wrong. With that, I hope that does address that somewhat well. I'll have to look into all of that side of things because for some reason now I'm feeling very unsure about the info I know on that. So I will look into that some more. But with that, we are on to the next one.
The two-step verification. They got to get the text message on the phone and input it back into the browser. But anyways, moving on here to our next one. This one goes to Neil Vizanot, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Neil, for the support. He said the point of that meme was that Elon is way better with rockets than whoever Kim can have working for him.
Oh, okay. Now I really do get the punchline. It's still not one to laugh at though, but I get it now. Like it's just, like a meme is supposed to elicit a laugh, and like I guess that's a meme because it's a joke, but it's not like a joke to laugh at. It's just like, oh, well, I guess. It's like, yeah, I guess that's true. But anyways, I hope that does address that fairly well, and I thank you so much for giving us support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Ogre Online, who puts in a 5, and thank you very much for that support. They said, if Doomers are right, then we are definitely in early World War III already.
Maybe so, but I generally don't listen to Doomers that much because Doomers will always tell you that this is freaking it and it's all over. And, chat, we're cooked, all that stuff. And it's like, we're probably not. We'll probably be fine. Because if Doomers were around during the Cold War and had a voice that actually was listened to, they would have been telling chat was cooked for 40 years or so, and no one would have ever stopped them. So with that, I hope that does address that well. And I think you want to give us support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we've got a $5 super chat from Quantum Fighter, who says Mike Oldfield featuring Maggie Riley's Moonshadow with Carried Away by a Storm Shadow. Instead, it's the latest battle hymn of North Korea and Picture It.
And I thank you for the support, and I'm having a hard time picturing that one, but I still thank you for the support and trying to make us picture that. And thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Noah Hansen, who puts in a 5 and says, do you think that we could see NATO get involved without it escalating to the level of nuclear war?
No, we would steamroll the Russians so badly, at least within the first few months. If we were looking for total victory, we would get nuked, and they would get nuked in return. So there really is no way for us to get involved without it turning into a nuclear war at that point. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Kyle Padell once again, who puts in a 5 this time. And thank you very much, Kyle, once again for the second support of the night. He said, my dad was Mark Padell, and he said, I'm a new follower, and he recommended the channel to me, and he passed away from MSRA. And also, once again, that's very bad to hear, and my condolences once again to you. He says, Slava LSA in Ukraine, and I am hooked.
Oh, well, thank you so much for the support, Kyle Padell, and the kind words. But that... It's very unfortunate to hear that he passed away from MSRA. And also, I got to say that that's very interesting to hear that you started watching the channel because he recommended it. And I got to thank you for being here. And I also got to thank him for recommending it because I hope that we're able to give you as many hours of enjoyment as he got out of it as well. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make it possible. And also, I got to give a big shout out to Mark Padell, who apparently was a member of the LSA and sadly gone, but never will be forgotten by the LSA. And so with that, a big thanks to you so much once again. And once again, much like your father, Mark, welcome to the LSA, Kyle. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Nick Nelson, who puts in a 2 and says, hypersonic RS-26 missile.
A hypersonic, what? Like, what? Let me see here. Let me go find
That's what Russia's claiming the name of the missile is, by the way.
Let me see here. Hypersonic Oreshnik. Yes, and I thank you for the support, and that is true. They did claim it was the Oreshnik, but when you said it, Matthew, I didn't know what it meant, and I was like, what? I was like, I had to go read the word, but yes, they are claiming that it was that missile, supposedly, which is a variation of the RS-26, and so with that, thank you once again for support, and we are on to the next one.
And Vic the Red puts in a 2 and says, Tacticat.
And Tacticat indeed. And so with that, thank you so much once again for supporting helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Mike Hagedorn, who puts in a 2 and says, thank you for all the work you do.
And thank you so much for enjoying all the work we do and supporting this channel and helping it to be possible, because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing a reality. And so thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Leora Abigail once again, who puts in a 2 as well and says, Enforcer Mark, when is your birthday? And also, by the way, Enforcer Mark is representing in the house. But seriously, though, Leora had a typo, and also, I found it quite funny, Leora. It was quite a funny typo, actually. But sadly, I can't say exactly when my birthday is, because that would allow some of our trolls and detractors and haters out there to really narrow down my identity even more and be able to find out information that I probably don't want them to find out about me. So I'll tell you that it's sometime in the summer, sometime around that point, probably around the June, July, or August mark, somewhere around there. But sadly, that's as close as I can get to it. But once again, thank you very much for the support, and I appreciate it very much, and also we appreciate it. And our next one here goes to Leroy Abigail once again, who puts in the 2 and says, Enforcer Andrew, what's your birthday?
And I thank you for the support, and also actually, Matthew, I'm thinking about that. I think we both celebrated our birthdays on stream last year.
Did I?
Yeah, I think we both did.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm very sure. I remember we did.
It's in July then. Y'all know that now.
Yeah, mine is in the month of February. So if you were ever wondering when was mine, it's in February, right in the middle part of it. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does answer that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
In our next one, in our last super chat here goes to Matthew Jenkins, who puts in a 2 and does not leave a comment. But once again, thank you very much, Matthew, for that support, and we appreciate it very much. And also, apparently, I did celebrate my birthday on the stream. I did not remember that, actually. I've totally forgot that. So, Leora, I take it back. It's in July, and I thought I kept that secret. That was not smart of me to actually do that, actually. Probably not wise. That might be how some of my information got put out there. But anyways, with that, we are now moving on here from our super chats. Let me make sure I've got them all taken care of, and it looks like we have. And once again, huge shout out to everybody supporting the channel tonight, and we appreciate it. And now it is time to get some live chat questions from everyone else in the live chat. And of course, first up, we had our Morse code decoders of the stream. And those this one went to Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Brenew, Kevin J., Paul Schultz, David Millsaps for Royal Fluffiness, and Arabelle Garbo. They said the Morse code says the world should not stand for such a blatant nuclear threat and should condemn it. And LLT, LSA.
And that's the sound of money, and y'all got that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. I got to congratulate y'all for getting that correct on the 1002nd day of war, because y'all continue to get that dead on the nail time and time again. Even on into the thousands of days, y'all are still getting it correct. And so with that, a big shout out to y'all. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our first live chat question tonight is going to go to Mike Keywood, who said, hi from England, and what is each of your thoughts on the likelihood of a global nuclear conflict by the new year, So that would mean we have a month left to start the nuclear conflict. I would say the odds of that happening are probably like 2%, some minuscule amount like that, and probably not very high at all. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree. I would believe that it would be incredibly low, at least in my opinion. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Pixel Lord M. And also, real quick, Pixel Lord M, hold on just a second here, because I'm told by Danny B that he sent a super chat, and I think I might have missed it. So let me go back up here and see where that one went. Let's see here.
Oh.
Danny B. Let's see, Danny B. I'm looking for Danny B's. Does anybody have Danny B's super chat? I'm scrolling through here and looking right now to see if I can spot it. Danny B, I'm actually not seeing that under the fan funding tab. So if you sent that in, please let me know and we will search for it some more. But in the meantime, getting back to this live chat here from Pixel Lord M, they said, do you think that in the future, Russia might resort to using these MIRV systems as a sort of Walmart brand rods from God?
Possibly they could. I'm doubting that they will, though, because using those kinds of systems is really expensive and nothing to be treaded on lightly, because the Russians really don't have the ability to produce more nuclear missiles competently in the modern day. Many people can see that with the Sarmat. The Sarmat has failed almost every single launch that it's supposed to. It's technically in service now in the Russian nuclear arsenal, and it's still failing test launches. So that's letting us know that that is certainly, without a doubt, something that they probably will not be doing often, because they can't really replace the MIRV systems, or the missiles for that matter, really easily with their modern technological abilities. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And also, I saw John's movie bar say, what's the lowest DEFCON now? It's probably around DEFCON 3. Not that serious, though. A lot of people think that that sounds really serious. It's been at DEFCON 3 for decades, really, at this point, so it's nothing really to be that concerned about. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to the Dirty Bubble, who says, would dropping tungsten rods from space constitute as a nuclear type of war? And if not, would it be acceptable for Ukraine to use this type of weapon?
So a tungsten rod, this is actually an interesting thing. A lot of people apparently were asking about the rods from God, sort of a kinetic weapon system that could be used by the Russians in the future. And the fact is that the tungsten rods and the mass that would be required to actually make a really dangerous weapon, the mass would have to be quite significant, and it's something that the Russians probably do not have the lifting abilities to be able to do, and certainly not any rocket in the Russian nuclear arsenal, including an ICBM, would be able to lift the payload required to create a significant enough size rod from God to cause any real damage. And that's why the rods from God idea was pretty much completely shot down in every country in the world, is because it is economically infeasible to do. The amount of rockets that you would need to be able to lift up one of these, the size of the rocket that would be needed to lift one of these tungsten rods into orbit, much less to create an actual launching system for them, would be prohibitively expensive. And so creating individual intercontinental ballistic missiles is still the much more affordable and easier option. Even still, the actual MIRV warheads, the reentry vehicles, are still not heavy enough and do not have the mass and the speed to be able to cause extremely significant amounts of damage. And so pretty much still in the modern day, you rely entirely on nuclear warheads and really nuclear deterrent instead of any form of a kinetic deterrent like a rod from God. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And also, real quick, I'm not sure what happened with Danny B's super chat, but he says he put in a $10 donation, and I vaguely remember seeing that one, but for some reason, YouTube is not showing it, which is really weird. But I do want to give credit to Danny B for supporting the channel with that $10 support, and also, we appreciate that. And also, sorry for the mix-up, because sometimes YouTube does not show some super chats in the fan funding segment there, and apparently that one got skipped or missed or glitched or something like that, but I'm sure it was probably received, it just didn't show up in that tab. But once again, huge shout out to Danny B, and we appreciate it. And moving on here to our next live chat question. This one goes to Tom Charles, who says, what is the delineation between a regional conflict and a world war?
A regional conflict is one that largely only pertains to a local area. The Ukraine war still technically is a regional conflict because all of the active fighting is only happening in between Russia and Ukraine within a single localized area, entirely within one's living room. And so for that reason, this is it's a regional conflict. Now, a world war would be a war that spans multiple different countries, mostly on two different sides, fighting each other in multiple areas around the world. So that would be like the United States, well, really NATO and Russia going to war, and the battles or the wars are extending all the way from the Aleutian Islands in Alaska to the Sea of Japan to maybe even North and South Korea into Eastern Europe, up into, not up into the area of Scandinavia, but down here inside of Turkey, which would be in Asia. That would technically be a world war because there would be enough countries involved in multiple different continents to be able to constitute a world war. But regional wars only happen within a very localized area. And so while there are world players that are involved in the Ukraine war from all sides and different continents, the actual active armed conflict is only happening in Ukraine itself, and for that reason, it ends up being a regional war and not a world war. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least from what I understand the differentiation in between a regional war and a world war is. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jesla LSA, who says, isn't Russia in violation of the nuclear treaty by having mid-range nuclear-capable missiles?
That is a good question. Technically, they would be if the treaty still existed. I believe the United States and the Russian Federation pulled out of that treaty sometime around 2015 or 2016. And so for about the past 8 years, that treaty has not been in effect. And that's the reason why the Russian Federation is able to produce a missile like that, and there isn't a major diplomatic issue being made about it because it's technically in the violation of a treaty, but the treaty isn't even in good standing anymore and is null and void. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least the best I can, from what I understand. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Melinda Grifford Vaughn, who says, can one of the THAADs in Israel be able to reach and to help Ukraine if necessary, or is that too far for a THAAD to reach?
Oh, that's way too far. A THAAD has a range of about 150 miles, and so for that reason, it would be way too far. A THAAD will be able to cover the entirety of Israel, but nothing beyond that. So Ukraine is way too far away for that to happen. But I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Angel, who says, what's the most difficult thing with running a successful YouTube channel? And I can tell you the most difficult thing is dealing with the other really rude pro-Ukrainian YouTubers. That's probably the hardest thing about it, honestly. But Enforcer, what say you?
That probably would be the hardest thing about it because, to be honest, running a YouTube channel is a dream. It's an amazing thing. It's really fun. We get to talk to all of y'all. Y'all talk back to all of us. Y'all all have kind things to say. We have really cool things to talk about, really people enjoy it a lot. It's always a great time. The only time that we've ever run into any real calamities that make this hard to run is when, so some Joe Blow YouTube channel decides to just start giving us a hard time, or someone wants to just start giving us, like someone wants to just give us a hard time from another channel. That's really the only time that's ever been tough, and that's only happened twice, really. The first time was back in October of 2023, and that began the technical dark age of the channel, at least is what we call it in the lore, the channel lore. And then there was another time fairly recently that someone did that. And that's when I said that pretty much everyone we've dealt with in the Ukraine war community, not everyone, but most everyone, has been an asshole. And then one guy decided that personally he was going to take great offense to it. And he's like one of the people we were talking about. So I guess that, you throw a rock into a crowd of dogs and the one that yaps is the one that got hit. I guess that was like the old saying right there. And so he decided to take... So he decided to take it personal, he decided to take it upon himself to have his entire community brigade us for that comment. And so that was like the only other time that we've ever had a hard time from another channel. This is always just stupid to see a whole bunch of random people come in and start brigading your stuff because of something you said that is largely true. But that's probably the only difficult time there's ever been running the channel. And even then, that's not difficult. That's just annoying. But anyways, with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
All right, and this one is going to go to, let's see here. This one will go to David Tablet, who said, if the Russians did follow through on their threat against Britain, would that trigger Article 5 with NATO?
Certainly. If the Russians attacked the United Kingdom being a key, well, I mean, hell, even if they weren't a key member of NATO, if Russia directly attacked with conventional weapons any country in NATO, whether it be the United Kingdom or even a country like, say, let me see here, let me think. Like Bulgaria, that would be cause to start World War III. That would invoke Article 5, and that would get NATO involved in the war against Russia directly. And so I hope that does answer that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Slim Pickens, who says, have you guys heard anything about China's response to this? And I've been looking, but I can't find anything.
I haven't either, which is a little weird, because usually they would come out and kind of say something like, come on, guys, let's make it peaceful now, or something like that. And they didn't do that, which is a little weird. I have a feeling they'll probably get an official diplomatic statement out here at some point, but I don't know when. It's entirely really tough to tell, because the Chinese sometimes just like to make random detached statements, and this may be one of those moments. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank each and every single person for watching, and also Danny B, I did take a look while Matthew was reading off one of the questions to try and see if I could find your super chat somewhere, and I even went through the YouTube Supers archives on the actual channel dashboard. I could not find it there either. YouTube just, I guess, erased all existence of that thing.
Wait a minute. Danny said they said that they canceled the request, so it must have been a YouTube glitch.
Dang. Well, it's good to know that we didn't mess up there. But I do thank you so much once again, Danny B, for trying to throw in that $10 super chat. And I thank you so much for enjoying the channel enough that you'd want to support it. But with that, it is time for us to round this thing out. I thank you all so much once again for watching, all 103,000 people who've watched this stream so far, and about the 13,000 people who are here tonight. We are entirely honored and extremely appreciative for each and every single one of y'all watching. And if y'all did enjoy, please make sure to subscribe. We have actually not only hit 311,000 subscribers today, we actually hit 312,000 subscribers. And it always makes us happy to know that people are enjoying this channel and the news that we cover. And so with that, we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And with that, folks, good night to you all. And once again, thanks for another great stream tonight. A absolutely news-packed stream tonight, if I can actually get the words out. But it was very much news-packed. And tomorrow's probably going to be the same thing. So be sure to join the Enforcer tomorrow midday on the Short War video. It will be his day for the news, so he'll be doing the video. And also, be sure to join us tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern for the next night of War News streams. And also, get some rest and Slava Ukraine. Heroam Slava, and we'll see you all tomorrow. And good night.
Yes. The Lee Spring Army sends its regards